Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto leaves Konoha forever Sasuke bashing. Before I start, please support for more amazing content, and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by DisobedienceWriter and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. Naruto was hungry. That was nothing unusual. No matter much he ate, he was hungry. But he was careful with his money so he wouldn't run out before the end of the month. His stomach rumbled as he stepped into a grocery store near where he was playing by himself. He had a small wad of bills and could pay for an apple or a few plums. He wasn't yet 5 years old, so he was able to stroll right in without anyone noticing him. The problem came when he stood in line to pay. He didn't remember ever being in this store. Some stores were okay to shop in, some were dangerous. He held 2 plums in his small hand and had already figured out the price. He got the right amount of money out and waited his turn to pay. However, such a simple transaction was not in the cards. The store owner took one look at his next customer and began screaming, You're not allowed in here. I won't sell you anything. I won't take your blood money either. Get out. Now. Get out. Naruto's eyes went wide, but he was frozen in place. The storekeeper didn't like it at all. He reached for a baseball bat and leapt over the counter. Naruto dropped the 2 plums and began running. He wasn't going to feel that baseball bat, no way. He turned down the alley behind the store. He didn't know this part of town well, but he knew where the alley led. Unfortunately, so did the storekeeper. Naruto dodged a blow when the man almost materialized in front of Naruto. He ran fast, but the old guy seemed to be even faster. Was he a ninja or something? Stop it. I offered you the money for the plums. I was hungry. None of his explanations stopped the storekeeper. Naruto shot into the street, half looking behind himself. What he failed to notice were the carts in the street, the carts that were moving too fast to stop for a small, tow-headed child. A great scream filled the street and brought everything to a halt. A small boy was suddenly pinned between 2 carts. The wailing got louder until it stopped altogether. An ANBU on the roof leapt down to take charge. The storekeeper dropped the bat, but quickly disappeared. He had a faint smile on his face. He'd done his patriotic duty to injure or kill the Cubeth demon which had ended his career as a ninja of the leaf. The ANBU quickly got a tourniquet around Naruto's left leg and separated the 2 carts with a good deal of effort. 5 minutes after the accident, the ANBU was leaping from building to building, zipping his way to the hospital. Another 4 hours later, the Hokage arrived to see what in the world had happened to Naruto. It was a grim situation. His leg is gone. The old Hokage asked. The medic nodded. We had to amputate just above his left knee. The powerful ninja pursed his lips and then walked over to the ANBU standing guard over Naruto's recuperation room. What happened, Ox? The subject went into the grocery store on 19th. 5 minutes later he ran out and was pursued by someone with a baseball bat. I missed a part of the chase, but Naruto ran into a road and was sandwiched between 2 heavy carts. Did you apprehend this person? The baseball bat guy. Ox shook his head. I have stayed here with the subject, Lord Hokage. The hallway fell silent. We should have done better by Naruto. The Hokage had visions of his successor and predecessor. Minato would be outraged. He'd likely flash around town for a few minutes, striking down anyone who'd ever looked askance of the boy. That, of course, was a young man's solution. Sarutobi had an old man's stamina now and doubted he could win a protracted political battle tied up with the boy, his tenant, and all of the baggage that went with that. Sarutobi decided on the coward's course, the path of least resistance. I will, of course, pay for the prosthesis myself. But all the boy's dreams. All my hopes for him. I don't know what the world will hold for him now. Ox said nothing to this. I will tell him myself, the Hokage decided. He turned to the medic Nin. Is he able to see visitors? We can't seem to keep him anesthetized. He's in and out of consciousness. The Hokage walked silently down the hall and tried to figure out what he might say. The boy had not had an easy life thus far, and now it would get even more challenging. The Hokage knocked on the door and then stepped inside. Old man, you came? Naruto sounded happy, even missing most of a leg. How Sarutobi wished he could have a corps of ninjas with that attitude. Yes, Naruto. I came as soon as I heard. It is terrible. Naruto nodded. It hurt a lot. I was really scared. I heard you were strong. Strong like a ninja, old man. I'm gonna be great someday. This was exactly what Sarutobi didn't want to discuss. Naruto, I'm so sorry. You'll never be able to be a ninja of the leaf. What? Why? I want to be a ninja, old man. You're missing a leg, Naruto. Our rules for training ninja are strict. You couldn't keep up with the other students, nor could you ever be fit for field service. Your body just wouldn't hold up to the strain. But old man, you promised. I know. I'm sorry. It'll help you find something else you can do, something just as good as being a ninja. I owe you at least that much, Naruto. Naruto didn't know whether to shout or pout, so he just rolled over in bed. He never won an argument with the old man. The old man only took Naruto out for ramen if the old man suggested it. He didn't know how, but Naruto was sure he would be a ninja, the greatest ever. He muttered, "You're wrong," as the Hokage left the room. 3 weeks later, Naruto returned to the hospital to trade in his crutch for a more permanent chakra-powered prosthetic. 2 problems. He didn't know what chakra was and he had absolutely no balance with the new limb. 3 different mednines had to help teach Naruto about chakra control, and finally about the chakra strings necessary to control his prosthesis. No one enjoyed the experience. This is so hard, Naruto opined after another failure. The med nurse working with him sighed and said, it's hard for anyone to learn. But I know you can do it. Ninjas in other countries use this technique all the time, not so much here. Naruto tried again. 1 step and then he hit the mats in the training room. What is this good for? His tone suggested he couldn't conceive of anything. Puppeteers can use chakra strings to control battle puppets. Instead of a ninja fighting with just his body, he can send in 2 or 5 puppets, depending on how skilled he is. Some ninja use chakra strings to control weapons or recall them after they've been thrown. There's lots of uses for this. Every ninja should know it, even if Konoha doesn't insist everyone learn it. Naruto absorbed every word. Then I'll get it. The best ninja in the world has to know chakra strings. Believe it, progress was slow. Naruto had too much chakra and too little control. So he eventually stopped listening to how the mednines told him to do things. He eventually found a way that worked for him. Instead of chakra strings, with tiny amounts of chakra, he used metaphoric chakra cables with massive ripples of energy. Every day, he spent time paring down the cables just a bit. This cable idea would become very important to Naruto in the future, even if he didn't realize its import at the age of 5. Indeed, within a few days of his epiphany, he was walking around on his prosthetic nearly as well as he had when he was fully limbed. The idea of ninjas using this technique fascinated Naruto for weeks, months even. It was a goal. A worthy goal. The Hokage told Naruto he couldn't become a ninja, but he could already use a ninja technique. The old man was wrong. Naruto could be a ninja. Naruto would be a ninja. The storekeeper with the baseball bat slipped from Naruto's memory. Eventually the man's actions would resurface and Naruto would remember everything. Until then, no one punished him. The Hokage didn't even suggest it. Chapter 2. A fully mobile Naruto walked down the streets of Konoha on his way to the Hokage Tower. He wanted to see the old man. He'd spent months, more than 6 months, getting proficient with his new leg. It was almost time to sign up for the academy. Maybe the Hokage would change his mind? A few minutes later, Naruto pounded on the door and walked right in. The Hokage looked up from a scroll and frowned at his new visitor. Naruto, you must wait before I invite you in. That confused the young boy. Never have before, old man. Why now? Something that's cute in a 4-year-old is rather annoying in a 6-year-old. You need to have better manners, my child. Alright, who's going to teach me? Naruto smiled. He wanted to talk all about teaching. People learn manners by watching what other people do, Naruto. All people must be observant of the world around them, especially those who live in ninja villages. Naruto began nodding. Or people who are going to be ninjas. Like me? Alright, I'll pay better attention. No, Naruto, you live in a ninja village, but you won't be able to be a ninja. That's what I came to talk about, old man. You can see I walk just fine now. It was hard to learn to do, but you can't keep me out of the academy. I can walk just as well as anyone else. The Hokage peered down at Naruto's left leg. It was hard to tell that the boy was an amputee. But the fact remained that he was. Naruto, the rules protect you and the village. Training would be dangerous for you, and if an opponent discovered your weaknesses, it could jeopardize your teammates. It's better if we train you up to do something else, something safer for you. But I want to be a ninja, old man. You promised I could. I need you to sign my forms so I can register. Please, I can't, my boy. I won't. Please. The Hokage leapt from his desk and flipped around, belying his advanced age. He landed on the floor in front of a petulant Naruto. With a single, elegant sweep of his foot, he separated Naruto from his prosthetic leg. The boy toppled over onto the hard floor and looked up with tears in his eyes. Why? Why did you do that? The Hokage offered a hand to lift the boy up. If I can do that, your opponents on a battlefield could too, Naruto. I won't put you or anyone else at that type of disadvantage. You aren't able to jump, you won't be able to run. I'm sorry. I expected you to become a great ninja, my boy. I'm so very sorry. The Hokage turned and walked to a wall. He tapped it once, and the solid wall rippled. In its place was a wall of scrolls. While Naruto sulked, Sarutobi perused his collection of beginner scrolls. He pulled 3 out, and then handed them to Naruto. You can't join the academy, Naruto. I'm sorry. But you can learn about chakra. I know about chakra, old man. I can use chakra strings. How do you think I move around so easily? Sarutobi smiled. This side of Naruto made him think of a young Minato, a brilliant spitfire with no manners whatsoever. Sarutobi went back to his wall of scrolls and plucked a few more down. Then try these, my boy. And pay attention as you wander around the village. You can learn more by observing carefully than by reading 100 scrolls. True knowledge is that which you discover for yourself, my boy. Naruto looked confused but plucked up all the scrolls. He hadn't gotten the answer he wanted, but he had gotten something and some advice. Pay attention, be observant. Naruto could do that. Naruto would do that, and then the old man would allow him to go to the academy. Alright then, old man. I'll be back later to change your mind. You can try, Naruto. A bubbling little blonde boy ran all the way from the Hokage Tower to his aging apartment building. He couldn't wait to open his scrolls. He'd show them. He could be just as good as anyone else, he could be better than anyone else. He plopped down in the center of his clean apartment, and began unrolling the scrolls. 2 were on chakra theory. Boring, but he'd read them eventually. 1 was on the great heroes of Konoha. On the Hokages, on the great jounins of times past. It explained their most famous techniques, but not in any detail, just the effects. It was great. Making wood grow from nothing, or moving around faster than anyone could see, or wielding special chakra blades in battle. Naruto wanted something awesome like that. Another scroll gave detailed instructions on basic taijutsu. Its companion explained several E and D rank jutsus that most academy students learn. Those scrolls told Naruto exactly what he wanted to know, gave him the steps for his training. The old man won't let me be a ninja, huh? I'll show him. I'll be the greatest ever, even without their stupid academy. He read the scrolls late into the afternoon before he remembered about his weak leg, the one the old man had kicked out from under him. He examined the thing until evening fell. He knew how to control it with his chakra cables, but it was still a weak stick of wood. He needs something better, something unexpected. Naruto, after all, fancied himself quite a prankster, a grand trickster of Konoha. He'd get started in the morning. Another stupid leg, this one out of the hardest wood available in the forest. The strongest there was, but it was too weak. Naruto could break the stupid thing with just a few hits from a kunai he'd found abandoned in a training field. I don't know how to work with metal. What else can I use? Naruto frustrated easily, but he did not give up. Not ever. He was going to get a newer, better leg, something that would make the old man sign him up for the academy. It was hard going learning out of scrolls. The bunshin was tough. He could make the henge sort of work some of the time. It was the kawarimi he really wanted to use. It sounded like the flying thunder god technique of the 4th Hokage. Zipping around would be great. All this learning took time. He wanted to learn in a school, maybe make some friends. He'd never had a friend before. Naruto threw the hollowed-out wooden leg on the floor. He went back to his plans. Instead of just a normal leg, he wanted this to be filled with surprises, something he could use to protect himself. Like a ninja would. Everything he tried either didn't work, or made the new leg way too heavy. Naruto had a fake leg, but he didn't want it thudding around everywhere he went because of its great weight. He needed to be somewhat inconspicuous. He decided to try again with a wooden frame, only 4 kunai, and a few of the other things he found on the training grounds. Maybe it would work this time. He could use chakra strings to walk and operate the kunai at the same time. But he couldn't keep the thing together under even a few blows. How to make it stronger? How to be a great student ninja? Naruto wished someone would help him, but no one ever came. Not even the old man anymore. He hadn't been around in months. A few weeks later, after many failed attempts at building a stronger, trickier leg, Naruto gave up. Just hiding kunai inside it wasn't very tricky. He could just buy a kunai holster, after all. He needed something inside his leg that would be useful in a fight and strengthen the overall leg. Leaving a hollow space just wouldn't work. He wandered back through the streets toward the nearest part of the forest. He wasn't uncognizant of the dark stares and deep muttering that the villagers addressed toward him. No likes me in this stupid place, Naruto muttered. He wished he could perform the henge technique well enough to use it today, but he was still trying to make it work. It would be much better to be someone else in this stupid village. Stupid villagers. Naruto turned toward a nearby training ground. He was going to design a trickier leg and needed to figure out a way to fill the hollow spot in the middle. Did ninja ever use things like bazookas? A small one would be perfect. The idea put a small smile on his face. Naruto the trickster. He'd remind everyone he was here and that he was smarter than he seemed. It was a bad idea to keep scowling at him. Naruto would remember. Yes, Naruto would remember the face of everyone who hated him. Chapter 3. A nearly 7-year-old Naruto spent most of his mornings wandering around Konoha, just observing like the old man told him to do. He wasn't allowed to go to the academy, but watching others practice taijutsu was miles better than studying a dusty scroll. Some mornings he sat and watched people for hours. Today he was trying to observe how people moved. He was still trying to make his first life-size puppet. He'd long since solved his problem with his leg and its special interior contents. Now he wanted to learn how to do battle. If he couldn't be a ninja on the field himself, he could have a puppet or an army of puppets on the field. The current problem was the knee of his puppet. He tried a dozen different things to make it work. That was why he was watching 4 different ninja practice sparring. All this would be easier if Naruto had someone to talk with. But even the old man got bored when Naruto began to talk about chakra strings and troublesome knee joints. The old man knew several puppeteers from allied villages, but he didn't know how they did what they did, so Naruto had to puzzle it out by himself. Eventually the ninjas finished up their morning routines and Naruto got up and left. He took a winding path around and through town. He watched how people moved. He'd eventually need to replicate ordinary movement, along with battle moves, in his puppets. There was just so much to learn. One of his favorite places to walk by was the Aburame compound. Sometimes he even caught sight of people training to work with tiny insects. That idea intrigued him. So many ninjas trained to make big attacks, powerful, colorful. But Naruto was impressed with the beauty and elegance of 1,000 small attacks. No one could avoid that many attacks all at once, especially not if they were coordinated in the right way. Naruto already planned to experiment with very small puppets after he got his life-size puppet working. The more he saw of the world, the more ideas Naruto had. He had dozens of ideas in his head of how to be a ninja, a non-traditional ninja. He wandered through the streets until it was noon. It used to be he'd have ramen with the old man on Wednesday afternoons. Naruto still turned up, but the old man hadn't joined him in a few months. Abandonment by the old man hurt even more than the angry stares he got from other people. He'd have to go see the old man today. He slurped through a dozen small bowls of different ramen flavors before he felt temporarily full. He trotted back to his apartment, and returned to his reading. His favorite scroll was about Konoha's legendary shinobi. Of everything he read, he loved the story of the Yondaime Hokage the best. A man who moved in such a way that no one could see him, let alone attack him. That was power. That was what it meant to be a ninja. Naruto wanted that. But he remembered one of the old man's cautions. He needed to crawl before he could walk or run. First a normal puppet, if he could ever get the knee joints to work, then some smaller puppets, and then some special tricks no one would ever expect. Such an easy thing to think, such a hard thing to make work. Even though many shinobi have attempted to recreate the Flying Thunder God technique, no one has succeeded. Many of the specially engraved kunai exist and have been studied extensively. For some reason, all the sealing masters who've studied the kunai and attempted to reconstruct the technique have failed when engraving their kunai. There are obviously hidden steps involved in the creation of the tri-pronged kunai, the scroll in his lap explained. Yes, that was it. Perfect. An unstoppable technique that no one else could use. Secrets that should be obvious, but weren't. Using something ordinary like a kunai to make the most devastating technique in Fire Country, yes. He began writing down more notes about what he wanted to do while he connected chakra strings to his fifth attempt at a man-sized puppet. It came out of his bedroom and looked very unstable. It wasn't just the knees. It was everything. The tall man's bowl-cut hair looked like the end of a mop that it was. It was supposed to mimic one of the ninja Naruto saw training all the time, but it looked like a terrible scarecrow. Step 1, make it work. Step 2, make it pretty. It had gotten so easy for Naruto to walk on his artificial leg. Why was it so hard to make the puppet work? He had years of practice with his leg. Why didn't his knowledge apply to his puppet? He practiced and wrote until it was well past dark. It was now a good time to go visit the old man. It only took a few minutes for Naruto to jog through the streets. Even with a false leg, he was agile and limber. Stupid academy rules. He could keep up with any of those ninja students, any one of them. He ran up the stairs and knocked on the Hokage's office door. This time he waited to be invited in. A few seconds later, the invite came. Naruto walked inside and the Hokage looked up. Oh no, I missed our lunchtime appointment, didn't I? Naruto just shrugged. Just came by to see how you're doing, old man. I'm good, Naruto. How are you doing? I'm grumpy. My puppet isn't working right. The Hokage nodded. Oh, what kind? A life-size puppet. The Hokage smiled. You've made good progress then, my child. The last I remember you mentioning was 2 feet tall. That's right. I got it to work finally and then went bigger. I'm glad. You've come a long way without a lot of help. You're smart young man, Naruto. I'm glad you're applying yourself so well. Yeah. Now, when can I get into the academy, old man? The Hokage clutched his forehead and tried not to sigh. Naruto, we've discussed this before, but I can run with my leg. And I've learned how to jump again, old man. There's no reason why I can't be a ninja. I'm sorry. We aren't having this argument. An angry Naruto decided to attack from another angle. Well then, if I can't go to the ninja academy, how about you sign me up for the civilian school, there? Civilian school was highly disrespected by ninja. The old man would have to cave. I'm sorry, Naruto, but I can't arrange that either. What? What are you talking about? I'm a young kid. I should be in school, old man. Let me into the academy. No. Well, why can't I go learn with the civilian kids then? Naruto had never wondered, until this evening, why he wasn't receiving any schooling at all. The thought had never occurred to him. The Hokage pinked up a bit in his cheeks. This was quite an embarrassment for him. It's a long story, but the Civilian Education Authority has a rule stating that any children who have any ninja enhancements must attend a ninja academy. What enhancements? The Hokage pointed to Naruto's left leg. You use chakra to control that. It's considered a ninja enhancement. What? I can't go to the civilian school because I have this leg? And I can't go to the ninja academy for the same reason? The Hokage slowly nodded. Old man, you've got to be crazy. How am I supposed to get some schooling then? I'm sorry, Naruto, but you aren't. The room fell silent for a moment before the blonde exploded. What? Why? That's the stupidest rule I've ever heard of. I promise I will explain it when you're older, Naruto. Naruto was shouting at the top of his lungs now. The Hokage had to wave away the ANBU who came to check up on what was happening. You're the strongest ninja in the village, old man. Are you sure I can't go to the academy? Just for classes. I won't even try to run or anything. Please. It was a desperately boring and lonely life Naruto led. The Hokage lowered his head in shame. I am the strongest ninja in the village, my child. But on this, my hands are tied. What good are you then? The Hokage looked up in anger. But Naruto was already gone. Also gone was any trust or faith Naruto had for the old man. It would be a long time before the Hokage saw Naruto again. 8 months later, Naruto was ready to do a field test on his newest project. He'd solved the problems involved in a functioning life-size puppet. The knees were tricky, but Naruto eventually found a design he could replicate with a few aluminum parts he salvaged from the village dump. Now he was ready. He picked his target, the strongest ninja in Hidden Leaf. The Hokage didn't seem to care about Naruto any longer, so Naruto would repay the favor with a mocking smile. If this technique could work against the strongest, smartest ninja in the village, then it could work against anyone. Naruto knocked on the door to the Hokage's office and walked right in. He knew what manners were, but he only used them for people he respected. At present, there were none. The strongest person in the village was letting him go uneducated. The old man could wiggle his little finger and make someone teach Naruto. He chose not to, for some reason. Hey there, old man. The Hokage turned around from another wall that revealed scrolls behind it. Naruto, I didn't expect you today. That's alright. I was just seeing if you wanted to get some ramen, old man. The Hokage crooked his head and looked at the stack of paperwork on his desk. I don't think I can. Not today, my child. Well, maybe later. He turned to walk out the door. Oh, Naruto, how is your puppeteering coming along? I've made a lot of mistakes, but finally figured out the right way. Maybe I can bring my puppet in and show you. The Hokage smiled and turned to continue examining his scrolls. He didn't hear Naruto leave. Indeed, he didn't hear anything until a Chunin came into his office to let him know that Ibiki wanted him to observe an interrogation. When the Hokage turned around to acknowledge the Chunin, the young ninja couldn't keep the shock off his face. What's wrong, Kituma? Your face and hands, Lord Hokage? Are you feeling well? The Hokage turned and pulled a small mirror out of his desk. Red spots? What could cause that? It only took his sharp mind a few moments to piece everything together. Naruto, Chunin Kituma, please find and bring me Uzumaki Naruto. He apparently decided to play a prank on me and I didn't notice a thing. I want to know how he accomplished this. Immediately, Lord Hokage. A few hours later, after turning the village upside down, a smiling Naruto turned up by himself and knocked on the Hokage's door. Come in. Naruto walked in. The Hokage was scrubbing vigorously at his hands with a wet pad. He still had the red spots everywhere. Naruto broke out into laughter. You're still scrubbing? Oh, that's awesome, old man. I got you good. That you did. I need you to do 2 things for me, Naruto. Sure, what do you want, old man? The Hokage wavered between anger and amusement, but he tried to keep it all inside. I want to know how to get rid of these spots. Can't. They'll go away by themselves. It's from a big fern I found in the forest. Naruto, you can't poison people with plants you find in the forest. The Hokage was beginning to sweat about how bad this could have been. There were truly toxic plants in the forest around Konoha. It just causes a rash. Naruto was trying hard not to laugh. How long? Last time I touched the stuff it took a week to go away. A week. A week? Why did you do this to me? You're the strongest ninja in the village. I was testing my new puppets. They did pretty good, huh? The Hokage scratched his head. Naruto caused havoc wherever he went. What kind of puppets? At this Naruto smiled. He reached into a pocket in his orange suit and pulled out a few small. The Hokage couldn't tell what they were. The Hokage swept them into his hand. I'm confused. What are they? They're my fly puppets. The Hokage looked at them closely. Yes, it seemed that the little thing had wings. Very ingenious. Fly puppets, what in the world can you do with them? Naruto flashed a huge smile. Tag you with a mild poison. Pretty good, huh? Sarutobi needed to put some necessary fear into the boy. Naruto, I could have the ANBU arrest you for attempting to kill me. Naruto smiled and then laughed. I'm not a ninja, remember, old man? The ANBU can't do anything to a civilian. The Hokage knew that was true. That provision had been eked out during the first Hokage's tenure, as a means of keeping the Hokage's personal power under control. Then I can call the police. They can't investigate crimes committed inside ninja buildings, old man. I started reading a lot of scrolls since no one would teach me anything. There are lots of interesting loopholes if you go looking for them. The boy was telling the truth. Civilians were almost never allowed into ninja buildings, which was the reason why the police were kept out by statute. This whole mess was just as glaring a hole as the rules keeping Naruto out of school. Clever boy. The Hokage wondered how many hours Naruto must have spent researching to find this way of exacting revenge through a harmless prank. It was a good thing that Naruto didn't have a malicious bone in his body, just an overpowered sense of justice and fairness. An attack like what Naruto did could have been fatal since the Hokage hadn't been on his guard in Naruto's presence. After all, the powerful ninja reflected bitterly, what could a small boy without any ninja training do to a Kage? Apparently Sarutobi was wrong to underestimate Naruto. The boy had reverse-engineered the puppetry technique from a few dropped hints and basic training in how to make and control chakra strings. This idea of tiny puppets was something that the Hokage had never heard of. It was like an Aburame being a puppeteer, but done in such a way that the insects made no noise and gave off no detectable chakra signatures. It was a brilliant idea. From the mouths of babes then. Maybe he could try to work it into his style or suggest someone else in his ninja corps try it out. Standard puppets were big and clunky, but these little insects were another thing entirely. You can leave, Naruto. I'll see if we can have lunch next week. The child was obviously angry and starved for attention. The Hokage needed to spend more time with him or see if there was someone he could get to befriend the child. Sure. I'll have more tests ready to do by then. I am not volunteering, Naruto. Head off now and I'll see you later. Naruto wasn't expecting much, so he wasn't surprised when the Hokage never showed up to have lunch with Naruto. Indeed, he was rather busy with his additional experiments. Naruto tested the different types of his new puppets and the several varieties of poisons he'd extracted tested against civilians, against shinobi, against the NBU. No one noticed his puppets. Everyone took a relaxed stance while staying in Hidden Leaf. It was eye-opening, the lack of precaution people took in such a dangerous place. It was a ninja village for Kami's sake. His strongest conclusion from all the testing was that he needed better poisons. None of the things he had caused anything worse than itching. He wrote it down on his list. The Hokage's continued indifference festered inside Naruto. It drove him. His new Nindo, if won't let me be a shinobi, then I'll just have to be better than them and show them that they're wrong. Chapter 4. No one watching the gates of the Hidden Leaf village took a second look when a tall, bulky, but nondescript man walked out of the gates. He dressed like a civilian and carried no obvious weapons on his person. A Chunin took a picture of the man and made a notation in his log. That was how 8-year-old Uzumaki Naruto left the Hidden Leaf village for the first time in his life. He had created this special hollow puppet that he fit comfortably inside of. It had taken more than 8 months to learn to control it, but now no one gave him a second look. In his place, Naruto had left a rather crude autonomous puppet. It would walk around the apartment a few times a day, but otherwise never left. It just seemed to stare at a variety of scrolls and occasionally pour glasses of water from the tap. The crude puppet could last for a year or longer before losing power completely. It was likely no one would even note that Naruto hadn't been seen outside of his apartment. People scowled at the boy, but otherwise didn't bother to think about him. Konoha's citizens were brutish and lazy, it seemed. Naruto was leaving now because he couldn't learn anything in Hidden Leaf. No one taught him anything. The old man hadn't given him any new ninja scrolls in years. No, he had places to visit and new worlds to discover. He planned to start in Suna, to shadow their puppet users, to see what else he could learn about his chosen art. Maybe they knew even better things. There were so many places Naruto wanted to go. He had a map and definite plans in mind. Traveling inside a hollow puppet made it quite comfortable to travel through the desert. There was a small fan located in the puppet's head to push air through the hollow body. It took Naruto only a week to traverse the distance. Getting into the ninja village was stupidly simple. He had arrived on Merchant Day. Civilians were looked upon with a great deal less scrutiny on a day like this. Halt, the masked guard said. The Naruto puppet stopped and quirked its head. Name your business. I am a farmer from River Country and I am here to visit your merchants. Name? Taro Ryu. Fine. The merchants have set up in Century Square. It's down that road there. You are not to venture into any marked ninja areas. I understand. Thank you. Naruto passed into Suna and was anxious to see what he might discover. He spent the day looking at what the merchants had to offer. He discovered 3 purveyors of puppetry items. He knew as a civilian he wouldn't be able to buy anything meant for military purposes, but he talked up learning puppetry for entertainment. He got a lot of tips that day. He looked over how these puppeteers constructed their weapons, what sort of joints they had ready-made, what sort of attachments they could find without difficulty. He had a good idea of how lethal these standard puppets could become. He saw nothing about miniature puppets. It made him smile. Naruto left that night and traveled through the night back to River Country where he slept in a makeshift tent. He could safely return in a week on the next Merchant Day. Until then, he had plenty to document, plenty of ideas to dissect and see what might be useful. He had ideas he wanted to attempt with wood in the forest he was sleeping in. He wanted to try developing in wood some of the parts he'd seen in the stores. He wanted to make sure he knew precisely how to duplicate all of what he'd seen. The week passed quickly. Naruto had constructed model after model, many failures to get to the correct components. He wanted to know every intricate detail of how a puppet worked, of how it might fail, of how it might be made better. He placed himself inside his hollow puppet once again. Taro, he liked that name. The puppet would keep the name of Taro. In the pre-dawn hours, Taro swiftly carried Naruto back into the desert. By the time the sun was over the horizon, Naruto was back at the gate, re-registering himself with a ninja guard. This day he was lucky to see a ninja group performing a mock battle for donations in the center of the marketplace. Apparently they were trying to drum up more volunteers to learn the difficult puppet arts. One needed to know taijutsu, ninjutsu, sealing, construction techniques, poisons, basic mechanical engineering to create special weapons, and then needed to achieve mastery of chakra strings. It was much easier to be a standard ninja, so the troupe had to go to extraordinary lengths to popularize what they did. Naruto watched for as long as the troupe performed. He traded a few valuable plants he discovered in river country at a few shops. Some paid in Suna money, some paid in store credits. Now, Naruto had a bit of coin and canned foods and a bag of rice to supplement what he was eating from river country. His life passed this way for the next few months. One day a week in Suna, 6 days back in the forests of river experimenting and documenting what the folks in Suna knew. He had a whole scroll with hints he'd heard, the legendary Akasuna no Sasori and his perversions of the puppetry art, his human puppets, coordinated attack armies controlled by a single skilled puppeteer, sealing techniques to store puppets in scrolls or other objects. The more Naruto learned, the more he realized he didn't know. His next trip in, Naruto asked some oblique questions about Sasori. What he got in response was the equivalent of ghost stories told over a campfire. Horror stories, a powerful ninja turning people into puppets, killing and gutting a Kazekage, the single strongest ninja in Suna's history, a lethal user of magnetic sand dead at the hands of a puppeteer. Naruto had more money now from his trading. He bought a few more supplies and a few items for hobby puppets. He promised one vendor that he'd bring his puppet in next week and give a little performance. That would be quite the thing. Naruto hiding inside Taro, giving the illusion that a puppet was controlling another puppet actually. Thinking about it, it was quite an idea. Naruto scribbled it down. He was getting better every day. He understood now what he just cobbled together before. He taught himself the practical lessons first through trial and error. Now he had the theory to go along with it. Things made sense now, even if he was learning in a backwards order. He had drained his sources in Suna. That meant it was time to move on. The trip up to grass country was far nicer than heading into the desert. Everything was green and beautiful. Naruto brought along a large sack of roots and herbs gathered from river country. He had a small amount of Suna money left, but he'd lose most of it if he bothered to exchange it. It was better to start over, make a new identity. He didn't plan to stay here long. The first day he slipped easily into grass country's main village. He found a number of shops, sold his collection of trimmings and roots from river country, asked 100 questions about the various poisonous plants found throughout this land, and bought a few scrolls identifying these plants with images. Naruto, well protected inside his Taro puppet, spent the next 2 weeks roaming the land searching out every type of poisonous plant and animal. He distilled leaves and roots down. He milked snakes and toads. Everything went into vials and got loaded into the storage chamber carved into Taro's legs. He wandered back into the village and produced some of the venoms and toxins he'd distilled. He watched as suspicious store owners tested the toxins and came away pleased with the results. He earned money and even more information about poison sources. He had enough money to snoop around grass country's many bookstores. He didn't have a lot of storage room left to carry such things, but when he discovered a volume on sealing techniques, he snatched it up. Naruto spent another month testing out new poisons. These ones he kept in a sealing scroll he was now able to produce. He was learning. He was advancing. It was time to move on. Should he go to Earth Country or Lightning? It was a tough choice. Chapter 5. More than 1 year after slipping out of Hidden Leaf, a 9-year-old Naruto returned. A Chunin snapped a picture of an obvious non-shinobi and made a notation in the log. Naruto made his way quickly back to his apartment. He had been traveling inside Taro off and on for most of a year. Naruto had also grown taller and become more muscled after eating a healthier diet than just ramen. He was barely comfortable inside Taro. Plus the storage areas in the puppet's legs and arms were completely full of storage scrolls. It was not good to be back, but he needed some time to put his next set of plans into effect. He entered his apartment building and noticed that the place had only gotten dingier. He unlocked his door and walked inside. There was no mail inside. The Naruto puppet was on the floor reading, for the 1000th time, a basic scroll on chakra control. Naruto crawled out of the Taro puppet and spent a few minutes stretching his cramped muscles. He then walked over to the Naruto puppet and turned it off. He'd be able to recycle this puppet. Or maybe it wasn't worth his time. He'd been working on different techniques than just simple wooden puppets. Naruto pulled out his sealing scroll and swiped it with his blood. Box after box appeared. Green, small boxes were his poison holders. The tan boxes held everything else, puppet parts acquired in his brief return to Suna, immediately before coming back to the leaf, scrolls on a wide variety of topics, samples of exploding notes from 4 different countries, and a variety of things Naruto wanted to further explore. Standard, life-size puppets weren't very interesting. They were good worker bees, but awfully single-dimension. Naruto had moved on and refined his techniques for very small puppets. He'd invented a technique for controlling mass numbers of them at the same time, but his new project was something completely insane. He knew what he wanted, but he didn't even know if it could be done. He had seen Tsuchi Bunshin and Mizu Bunshin. Naruto wanted to create a Bunshin from wood or some other base material, with full chakra networks, and controllable through chakra strings. He didn't even know where to start building the technique, but he wouldn't give up. He had the beginnings of his ninja style. Deception, traps, puppets and poisons, seals enhancing everything. He probably would never have chosen this style had he still had his left leg, had he gone through the standard ninja training. But it felt natural to him now. He needed time to get ready. He knew his destiny did not lie within the Hidden Leaf village. It felt unnatural coming back here, But he had a lot to prepare before his final departure. He pulled a cup of instant ramen from his kitchen cabinet and began to warm up some water. He hadn't any ramen since stopping in a village in Earth Country. He was looking forward to a familiar taste. His own apartment, his own bed. Cleaner than the rooms in Kumo, larger than the dumps near IWA, less dirty than camping out in the forest. All the main creature comforts, but something was missing. Somehow his apartment didn't feel like home so much anymore. Naruto wasn't much interested in the cereal on his spoon. It had no flavor. There were butterflies in his stomach, too. Naruto realized, with a touch of surprise, that this was the first year he'd be allowed to attempt to qualify as a genin had he gone to the Konoha Ninja Academy. Instead he was self-taught, learning more from experiments than from generally accepted wisdom. In a way it hurt, but his non-traditional education also paid unexpected benefits. His personal taijutsu was acceptable ignoring his disability, and remarkable considering his missing leg, but he was on a whole other level when battling with a puppet. His ninjutsu was limited, little beyond 3 types of bunshin, the henge, kawarimi, and a few others he picked up by accident in his travels. The kawarimi was his favorite. It reminded Naruto of the best technique he'd ever read of, the Flying Thunder God. Naruto knew he wouldn't be able to do what the 4th Hokage had done, his version of being everywhere at once. But Naruto could design something else. It was the item at the very bottom of his rather long list. Naruto stood up from his breakfast table, leaving the bowl behind. Cleaning his apartment didn't matter anymore. He was ready, everything was packed, the explosive was set to go off in 3 hours. Naruto headed out of his apartment for the final time. He was now 10 years old, and it was time to go. He had 1 bowl of ramen at Ichiraku's. Damn fine ramen they served, but there were specialties in each of the other villages he'd been to that were just as good. He left a substantial tip as it was unclear whether Naruto would ever return to Konoha in any guise, certainly never with his true face. It was delicious, thank you. You come by more often, youngster. I like to try out the new flavors with you, the chef hollered back. I'll try. The walk to the Hokage Tower took no time at all. Naruto strolled right in. No one seemed to notice him. Quick enough, he knocked on the Hokage's door and strolled right in. Old man, I just had ramen and remembered that I hadn't stopped by in a long time. The Hokage looked up from a book a pile of paperwork. That was a fast disappearance. Must be something embarrassing or perverted. Hello, Naruto. How was the ramen? Naruto smiled. Hot and wonderful. We haven't had lunch in a long time, old man. I know, my child. I've just been so busy. Naruto walked around the room staring at the walls. That's alright. So, are you going to let me go to the Ninja Academy this year? No, Naruto. I'm sorry. Naruto tried to keep his voice as whiny as possible. But I can do all the techniques. I taught myself from the scrolls you gave me a few years ago. The Hokage couldn't keep the frustration out of his voice. No, it's my final decision, Naruto. You may not be trained as a ninja of the leaf, and I will not permit you to become a genin of the leaf, even if you could pass the test. That's it then? The Hokage nodded. I'm sorry, my child. I had wished a different life for you. I'm sorry too, old man. I wish we never got to this point. At that, Sarutobi felt a small pain in his neck. Another one of Naruto's puppets, but he couldn't move his head, nor his hands. This wasn't a prank. He couldn't even call out for help. Would he die at the hands of an untrained boy, he, the god of shinobi? A boy who had taken up puppetry without a mentor and destroyed a Hokage? It just wasn't possible. It's just a paralysis toxin, old man, Naruto explained. You won't be going anywhere for hours. I'll just pull out your dirty book and prop it up in your hands, just like this. You already have a perverted scowl on your face, so no one will interrupt. Naruto laughed. No, they won't interrupt you, Lord Hokage. They all have manners, after all, the boy said with a bitter voice. You should have done better, old man. You should have trained me to be a ninja. Instead, I had to train myself. Now, it's time for me to go, but I'm taking every scroll you have in here. It took just a few minutes to pull all the scrolls out of their nooks using hundreds of chakra strings. Naruto piled them up and did one more search of the office. He found a couple more nooks. Then he searched the old man's desk. A few more items of interest, secret files, stuff with sophisticated seals that would take a long time to break. He looked at the frozen old man, and couldn't bring himself to say anything more. Naruto took a blank scroll and began scrawling. You are wrong. I will be the greatest ninja ever born. When the old man regained control of his muscles, he would see those words first thing. Naruto didn't know what he would do if he ever saw the old man again. He hoped not to have to make the choice. He was just so angry right now. He unsealed another scroll and the 5th version of his Taro puppet poofed into existence. Naruto stowed the sealing scroll with the Hokage's collection into his puppet, then he crawled inside. Minutes later, a chunin at the gate took the man's picture and made a note in his log. He was halfway to River Country when his former apartment ignited in massive flames. He was safely nestled in the forest in River Country when a chunin finally managed to revive the Hokage. He was well into a few new experiments by the time the Council of the Hidden Leaf realized they couldn't declare a non-ninja as a missing ninja. Another loophole, this one to Naruto's benefit. Naruto was deeply conflicted about what he'd done. He hated the Hokage, but he missed having lunch with the old man. He hated the villagers who glared at him, but he knew he'd miss his apartment and the comfortable ramen stand he visited often. He'd never had a friend in Konoha, but there was no guarantee he'd ever find a friend somewhere else. There was no time for regret. The decision was made. He had to live with it. His only consolation was that Konoha had abandoned him long before he'd abandoned her. Chapter 6. Naruto ate a delicious meal of fish and bitter greens as the night took over the sky. He'd been living in river country for 6 months now. The life agreed with him. He'd read a good portion of the scrolls he'd taken from the Hokage, but he had at least surveyed all of them. The ones of sealing techniques got the highest priority. The ones with big, fancy ninjutsu were at the bottom of the pile. He'd definitely improved his skills. Several of the scrolls taught him to detect and dispel genjutsu, although he had little interest in crafting them. He'd learned a whole bunch of techniques, like poison notes and shadow clones, an excellent learning aid that he could implement with his puppets. He'd even found technical scrolls on chakra strings, how to really get the most out of them. Even Naruto learned some valuable tips reading through them, but the biggest finds reassured Naruto he had made the right choice to leave Konoha, the bunch of lying bastards. Naruto now knew who his parents were. He knew about the council liquidating his dad's estate and putting the money in the general revenue. He knew about his demonic tenant. He knew that the Hokage had locked his father's personal technique journals away in his library, and obviously never intended to give them to a child who hadn't even been trained as a ninja. He knew every dirty or evil act commissioned by Hidden Leaf since the old man had been in charge. The wars Hidden Leaf started between its enemies, the potential civil wars it had ruthlessly disrupted, all the blood and bodies Hidden Leaf extracted from friends and foes. Had he learned all this while he was still in Konoha, Naruto had no idea what he would have done. His family was gone. His life was ruined. He was relegated off to being little more than a street urchin, without education or the possibility of finding employment there. His passion to become a ninja ended because of an accident, and a stupid law that the Hokage could change in a second. Naruto cleaned up his plate and dishes in a small stream near to his camp. He dispelled the shadow clones he had been using to hold the chakra cables to the defensive puppets. They were running low on chakra. He created new ones to hold the chakra cables, each with between 1,000 and 3,000 individual chakra string, to power the defenses. Each string connected to a defensive perimeter or to a tiny puppet or to some other trick or trap Naruto had hidden in the forest. He fully expected that Konoha was hunting for him. He fully expected to have to defend himself at some point. But not tonight. He put all of his things away and went into the small cave he built from a medium-level earth technique on one of the old man's scrolls. He created another shadow clone and had it connect up the last of the defenses. His nastiest micro-puppets, these ones engraved with exploding seals or fire seals or daubed in some of his nastiest poisons, were this last line of protection. Naruto fell asleep, happy with such a tasty dinner. His mind raced even as he was unconscious, trying to piece together how exactly he was going to create his ultimate technique, the puppet clone. In his mind, the thing was able to use chakra like a shadow clone, but without dispelling from a single hit, and to be constituted by a chakra string inscribing a set of seal on any kind of material, whether stone, metal or glass. That central seal was what kept the puppet clone active, regulated the chakra pumping into it through the chakra string, and described its abilities. That central seal, and the metal or glass or stone it was inscribed upon, was what had to be destroyed for the puppet clone to dissipate, in theory. In his dreamland, Naruto hadn't yet figured out the elements of the seal, let alone how to inscribe a seal using only a chakra string. With this technique complete, Naruto would command a power greater than even what his father had. The Flying Thunder God allowed one person to flit from target to target faster than anyone could see. The puppet clone's ultimate purpose was to instantly raise an unexpected army and to slaughter all opponents without endangering Naruto. To dissipate before anyone had ever known they were there, in extremis, to remain on the field as long as needed. Again in theory, the idea was that Naruto could be miles away from the conflict, but still control the chakra cables. His mind was filled with formulas and notes, even while he dreamed. Success in this venture was years, if not decades, away. It was a simple tug. That was what awakened Naruto. A tug from the shadow clone guarding the entrance of his cave. Someone or something was here. He leapt from his pallet on the ground and quickly sealed himself inside his Taro puppet. A shadow clone was dispelled on the perimeter. One of 36 defenders' puppet controllers. In its final moments, the shadow clone realized what was happening. A large force, at least a dozen ninja, approached from the Suna side of the forest. Why were they here? Naruto wove and cast out a more chakra cable from the palm of each hand. He used half the chakra strings in one cable to wrap around the body of one of the ninja approaching Naruto's camp. With just a wiggle of his little finger, the chakra strings broke the man's neck. Another dispelled shadow clone told Naruto that the entire force had seen the attack with chakra strings. They wouldn't allow themselves to be captured that way again. 100 micro-puppets had just launched when that clone was destroyed. Good, Naruto thought, the poisons and explosions should be softening up any attackers. The main problem with his defenses is that they were weighted toward the Konoha side of the forest. Naruto now realized it was stupid to have done that, so many wasted opportunities. He used his chakra cables to try to pull the out-of-position puppets into the battle area. He then dropped his half-consumed chakra cables and formed new ones. With both cables, he lifted giant boulders from the riverbed, as many as he could find that weighed more than 30 kilos, and dropped them on the ninja. It provided a distraction, hopefully. Another shadow clone, no 2 dispelled. The enemy was down another 3 fighters. The micro-puppets were devastating. Naruto took a moment to comprehend what was happening. There were at least 3 highly skilled ninja with the team, the others were fodder. The shadow clone that controlled the inner circle defenses, the one with access to the most lethal poison micro-puppets, dispelled. The invading force was down to 2 who were both wise to the puppets somehow. One was poisoned, but it would take time to drop him. Naruto formed up a few thick chakra strings. He had a few experimental puppets in the cave. If this was his last stand, he wasn't going to hold anything in reserve. A man burst into the cavern. 3 puppets, including the incomplete 6th version of Taro, confronted him. That Suna ninja was powerful, wielding a pair of swords. Another man sped into the cavern. Naruto inside of Taro was on him immediately. This man used a sword composed of air affinity chakra. It was a devastating technique. Taro was taking major damage. The other Suna ninja had succumbed to his 3 attackers. In a moment of distraction, the wind user made a slash across Taro's midsection. It was powerful enough to shred the wood. A powerful kick to Taro's thigh had such force that it threw Naruto from the damaged puppet. Thudding against the wall, Naruto lost his connection with the other puppets in the cave. The Suna ninja looked confused for a moment, and then blinked. A kid? A fucking kid! The ninja looked around the cave for a second. I led a team of 12. I'm the only one standing. No one's that good at traps. 5 of Suna's jounin are dead. Tell me who you are and how you did this. Naruto was still clearing confusion from his mind. As much as he trained, he had never before been in a battle. He'd never killed anyone until today. He didn't know what was happening. The Suna jounin didn't like the silence. He crossed to Naruto and kicked the boy. Keep your hands visible. You start making a hand seal and I'll behead you. Start talking now. I am no one, the jounin snorted. What village are you from? Who the hell taught you to do all this? I once lived in the Leaf village. Leaf? That bunch of wimps. They don't know the first thing about puppets or trap setting. You need to tell me a better lie. Where are all the other ninja in this camp? I'm the only one here, I swear. In the past week we've registered 5 dozen different unique ninja techniques coming from here. Your people were stupid not to detect our border patrols. Where are the other ninja? Naruto just shook his head. He had used all the techniques himself, trying out quite a few of the ninjutsu scrolls in the Hokage's pilfered collection. Fine. I can just take your corpse back to Suna. Maybe the technicians can make your body give up your secrets. Anything they do will be more forthcoming. The Suna jounin brought out his wind blade, but he didn't get a chance to use it. Naruto had taken the man's brief interrogation to work out a plan. He had one trick up his leg. He tested the thing before, but never actually used it while he was attached to his false leg. He kicked out his left leg. With a chakra string he always kept active, even with his jarring collision against the cave wall seconds earlier. Naruto detonated a powerful rocket right in the Suna jounin's face. It wasn't quite a bazooka, as he had dreamed of as a child, but it caused quite a bit of damage. His special prosthetic leg was ruined, of course, but Naruto was alive. He sat up and just tried to calm his breathing. He had nearly died. Died. From an enemy he didn't even know he had. What to do? What? He needed to collect what remained of his puppets. He needed to search the Suna corpses. He needed to destroy this site and get out of river country. He gave himself 2 hours. It wasn't much time. 50 shadow clones popped into existence. They ran out of the cave to salvage what they could. He'd spent years crafting all types of his micro-puppets. He wanted to salvage what he could. Naruto crawled over to his mostly destroyed workbench and found a workable prosthesis to wear. He turned back and began searching the 2 dead men inside his cave. One was called Baki, no family name. The other was called Q, also no family name. Perhaps it was a security thing. The 2 had a few scrolls on them, all but one were encrypted. He got more scrolls from the shadow clones who'd searched the other bodies. It wasn't much of a haul considering he'd lost nearly 2/3 of his micro-puppets. They'd helped to take down some of the best shinobi in Suna, but it was a hard loss. More than a year's work. Naruto left explosive notes, stacks of them, in all the strategic areas of his former camp. He was gone from the scene of his near-death within 50 minutes. As Naruto slipped back into Fire Country on his way northeast, the notes were triggered by a shadow clone. The camp would burn for hours thanks to the dry kindling Naruto had stacked around the formerly serene location. Naruto mourned that camp. It was a beautiful place. He headed through a long, zigzagging path toward grass country. He'd resume his research there. He was using an unfinished Taro puppet and a prosthetic leg he'd crafted and rejected a month earlier. He needed to get into a new base camp quickly. He felt awfully vulnerable out in the world right now. His fingers twitched and directed the puppet almost without conscious thought. His mind was racing though. He'd had his ass handed to him. He thought he was invulnerable. Only a juvenile appreciation of bazookas had saved Naruto from an early death. He'd never be the strongest ninja if he could be taken down so easily by a Suna jounin surrounded by a kilometer's worth of traps in every direction. Naruto needed to get stronger. Fast. Chapter 7. 6 months after his near-disastrous fight in River Country, Naruto finally felt comfortable with his situation in Grass Country. He'd gotten stronger. He'd cracked the encryptions on the Suna scrolls. Most of it was operational instructions, not training materials. He had several bolt holes throughout Grass Country. He was ready for the next phase of his development as a ninja. He had knowledge. Now he needed experience. A tall man, nearing 7 feet in height, with well-tanned skin and dark black hair stalked into the main village of Grass Country. He carried 2 kunai holsters and an elegant sword on his back. 2 chunin and a jounin appeared in front of him. Taro stopped walking. What's your business here? Taro looked down at the smaller men. I have come to apply to the Grass Ninja Forces. The jounin's eyebrows reached almost to his hairline. Alright, step in here. We need to perform an initial security check before we can escort you to the recruitment office. Taro moved quickly to the guard post. The jounin led the questioning. The 2 chunin appeared to be flipping through books, likely bingo books. Name? The jounin asked. I am called Taro of the River. Previous ninja village affiliation? Taro shook his head. I have never served in a ninja force. How did you receive ninja training then? A retired ninja in my village taught me. And his name? He called himself Kembuta, but I doubt it was his true name. The jounin nodded. Ninja were often stingy with information. What are your specialties? I am a generalist. But I excel with weapons and trap setting. The jounin was scratching away on a form. Have you ever committed any crimes? No. The jounin looked skeptical of that. No one could rise through the ranks without doing some illegal things from time to time, at least not in Grass Country. Do you have any aliases? None yet. The jounin smiled at that. Famous ninja tended to pick up admiring nicknames from allies and derisive titles from opponents. You have no relationship with Grass Ninja, correct? True. Why join our ninja force? You have a good reputation. Suna is shrinking. Konoha is full of eccentric prima donnas. IWA is way too serious and hardcore even for me. Kumo's a bunch of assholes, and I haven't heard a single good thing about Kiri. The jounin nodded as he scribbled. He looked up at the chunin and apparently got a positive answer. Come with me, Taro of the River. I know just the person you should speak with. 4 hours later, after an even more extensive interview, Taro had to perform a placement demonstration. He went up hand-to-hand against the taijutsu master. He held his own for 5 minutes. Then he had a weapons demonstration against the leading kenjutsu master of Grass, katana against katana. The exhibition lasted 10 minutes before Taro was disarmed, a very successful showing. Finally, he had a ninjutsu examination. He had to go up against the same jounin who interviewed him. It quickly became apparent that whoever Taro's teacher had been, all aliases aside, had been supremely talented. Taro had a wind affinity, but also demonstrated familiarity with earth and fire techniques. The judging jounins awarded Taro the rank of chunin, although 2 of the 5 were willing to make him a jounin. Welcome to the ninja force, Taro. Report to central office tomorrow for your first assignment. Do you have housing arranged already? No, could you recommend a place? Let me walk you over to the realtor many ninja use here. I appreciate it. You may call me Tenuya. Much appreciated, Tenuya. Naruto, in one of his bolt holes miles from the Grass Village, smiled after Taro arrived at his new apartment. His new techniques were working perfectly. He was able to control Taro Mark 7 from miles away, even the voice. Taro's eyes transmitted back perfect 360-degree images. Even better, Naruto had perfected the technique for giving a puppet a functioning chakra system. A medic nin's surface scans wouldn't show anything abnormal about Taro at all. It was a perfect puppet in that it didn't look like a puppet. This puppet also had the first working heartstone Naruto had managed to create. The small piece of chakra steel contained dozens of seals that directed and controlled Taro's chakra usage. It also had a few seals designed to self-repair the puppet. A severed arm would knit back onto the torso within seconds. Only the complete destruction of the heartstone could render the puppet worthless. It was a minor miracle of engineering. Taro settled into his first role easily. He was assigned to a 3-man team that patrolled the outer perimeter of Grass Country for 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. It was a grunt task designed to break new chunin of their illusions about ninja service. Naruto, of course, was busy doing his research while he only devoted a quarter of his attention to the Taro puppet. Naruto was working on the next sets of seals needed to improve on his heartstone puppets, a necessary step to developing rapid deployment puppet clones. Right now it took Naruto more than a month to engrave all the seals necessary to activate a heartstone puppet, one capable of wielding chakra and superficially identical to a real human. If he could finish his puppet clone technique, he could raise up an army of heartstone puppets in seconds. He had time now. He could get the experience he needed in battle. Eventually he might even test his own personal prowess, sans puppets, in battle. But he still looked more than a bit young for that. For now he relegated the control of Taro to a single finger on his right hand. The other 9 fingers were busy developing, improving. Taro of the River became famous as a denizen of the ninja archives in Grass Country. Over the course of his first year as a chunin, when he wasn't performing border duty and catching smugglers or bandits, he was reading scrolls. He read on nearly every topic. So long as it applied to the ninja arts, Taro read it. Biographies of enemy jounin, detailed plans of past grass country military incursions, the research and development budgets for the last 50 years, histories of the noble families of grass country, and their famed techniques. And when he wasn't reading scrolls, he was in the training fields. It seemed that he never slept. He had stamina that no one had ever seen before. He could perform taijutsu forms for hours before he pulled out his sword and went for even longer. There were times when he disappeared into the tall bamboo and emerged later to find some jounin who needed trap detection practice. Only 2 jounin in a year managed to make it through a trap field set by Taro. And they were lucky he hadn't bothered to poison any of the apparatus. In his rare quiet moments, he typically left the villages to take a run in one of the many grassy fields nearby. He seemed to never want to stop moving. Since no one ever saw him eat in public, the rumor started that Taro was deathly afraid of being poisoned, and Kusa was well known for its lethal, near undetectable poisons. One day, Taro dispelled that rumor by going into a poison vendor and dipping a kunai in a lethal cocktail. He cut his own skin and did not promptly fall over dead. Taro of the river was a complete enigma. He, unlike every other chunin of the village, did not complain about border patrol duty. He was a perfect ninja, almost totally without personality or dangerous eccentricities. His reputation soared even higher one unfortunate afternoon on patrol. He and his 2 chunin colleagues ran into a small group of ninja, one of whom was a bone wielder. The pale ninja remained behind while the other 3 ninjas bounded away, not even bothering to look back at their colleague. Within 30 seconds, the bone wielder killed Taro's 2 chunin colleagues. Taro dodged and weaved and tried to assess exactly what this ninja could do. He tried a few exploratory attacks. A kunai did nothing. His sword was destroyed by a bone effusion from the ninja. His use of a blade of wind caused some damage to the bone wielder, but a kind of bone armor quickly grew over the pale ninja's entire body. Taijutsu was contraindicated with such an opponent. Taro's primary weapons did nothing. Taro, through the chakra strings controlled by Naruto, released tiny poison lice. They tangled into the hair of the pale ninja and crawled toward his scalp. 20 seconds later, the bone wielder fell over dead, a victim of one of Kusa's numerous poisons. No ninja's ultimate defense was without holes. Even bone armor couldn't cover every part of the scalp. Taro dispatched a few dozens tiny puppets from compartments hidden in his body, under his clothes. He was surveying the area for those other 3 ninja, but they already seemed to be outside grass country. He could only use puppets as Taro because Taro didn't have access to a technique like shadow clones. Taro had to stay in character. He knelt down and checked on his colleagues. With the horrible gashes through their bodies, it was unlikely they were still alive, but he had to verify. Taro had 3 dead bodies, 2 colleagues and the strongest enemy he'd yet fought. He pulled out a blank scroll and a brush. Within 2 minutes, he had a freshly inked sealing scroll. The bodies disappeared into it, and Taro scooped it up and bounded back to the village. He was reporting in 3 hours early, but this was a catastrophic occurrence. A group of 3 jounin debriefed Taro. They were very concerned about what had happened. Allied ninja crossing grass stopped and presented papers. They certainly didn't leave an assassin behind. What kind of hideout did he wear? I don't think he wore one, Taro said. His colleagues? I saw their backs. They did not stop even when their pale friend stayed behind. Do you think he was the strongest or the weakest of them? Taro shrugged. No idea. I can't imagine much stronger than him, though. One of the jounin, disguised by a mask, asked, How did you manage to kill him? Here Taro was prepared to answer. He did not care to explain the micro-puppets he used, or his extensive knowledge and use of poisons. A colleague today could easily be an enemy tomorrow in the world of ninja. I did not, Taro said. I battled him to a standstill. My weapons could not touch him. His bone blades could not hit me. Then he flopped over dead. He had a racking cough. It is possible he was left behind because he was so sick. We will have the medical corps be careful examining his body then. The after-action report continued for hours. Taro had to recreate the battle, pose by pose, as best he could. The jounin wanted to know everything about an opponent as lethal as this bone wielder, identified as a Kaigai clan trait by one of the jounin. In the coming days, Taro's assignment changed from border duty to service in the armory. It was seen as a step up in the ruling cabal's confidence in Taro's loyalty to grass country. Finally, after almost 2 years of service to grass, Taro was invited to take the jounin exam. Everyone in the know considered it a formality. By the end of that day, Taro was the newest jounin of grass and probably the strongest of any of them, although no one admitted that out loud. Naruto had been busy. He'd finished extending the reach of his puppets. He had chakra cable relays and was now able to wander for hundreds of miles away from Taro, rather than needing to be within 5 miles. He now had bolt holes established within an even dozen countries. He had secondary puppets establishing identities in earth, lightning, rain, and wave countries. He was thinking about setting up something in fire country, maybe near one of the gambling resorts. His new puppets were farmers or beggars or even the librarian of a civilian school. One managed a small warehouse for drying tea leaves. He could pick up the strings and manage these puppets directly, but for sake of his sanity, he left the day-to-day work to a series of shadow clones. As Naruto perfected his control over the thousands of chakra strings in a chakra cable, his shadow clones improved their control. He had discovered the process for inscribing seals on stone or wood. It was still a slow process. Even if he used 8 or 10 chakra strings, it took a few minutes to create a heartstone. Not fast enough, not by a long shot. He had a lot of work to do. He trained constantly, both in his physical body and in his manipulation of puppets. But he still lacked much of the experience he knew he needed. He needed harder enemies. He hadn't forgotten his vow back in Hidden Leaf. He would be stronger than anyone else. A little crippled boy would be stronger than everyone. Taro looked impassive when he received his newest assignment, a genin team. He got what the other jounin referred to as the dregs of this academy class. He met with his 3 nervous students the day after the assignments were made. The young students, who were about Naruto's own age, were excited and totally clueless. Naruto, through his puppet Taro, decided that he'd had an unconventional education, a successful unconventional education. He'd had to work hard for his gains. His students deserved everything he could help them achieve. Before the kunoichi could open her mouth, Taro waved her silent. Let me be clear. I am here to make you as good as I possibly can. What I will teach you will likely conflict with what you learned at your academy. I will teach you to find your individual style. I will not allow you to be seduced by wild, vibrant techniques. You need to be effective before you hang a flashing sign around your neck saying, "Please kill me." The boy with the silver hair will be referred to as number 1, the girl over there is number 2, the half-asleep child who is about to need to run laps is number 3, and I will be called number 4. I am your teacher. I am not your friend. The students looked scared and dismayed. Taro was pleased with the reaction. The other jounin had been willing to write off these students because of their lackluster academy performance. Taro Naruto will hone them into fine daggers. I will now assess your skills. Number 1, you will head into that stand of bamboo and hide yourself. Numbers 2 and 3 will wait 5 minutes and then go in to find you. When you locate number 1, you will use taijutsu only to immobilize number 1 and drag him back into this clearing. Number 1, the silver-haired boy, looked ready to cry. Go. Your time is ticking down. Go and hide. I'll call this off if you can hold out an hour. How's that? The boy shook his head as though his sensei was insane, but he ran off into the bamboo. Taro just began practicing taijutsu while his other 2 students conferred between themselves. Number 3 asked, how is he assessing us if he's just doing katas? Taro smiled mid-exercise. I have excellent hearing and more tricks up my sleeve than you've ever considered. By the way, you and number 2 should go and retrieve your colleague. Number 2 shouted out, it hasn't been 5 minutes. I know. Ninja rarely follow any rules. I will however suspend the exercise after 1 hour if you're unsuccessful. He saw some lights go off in his students' minds. Miserable students, of course, have to serve as my punching dummies. Keep that in mind. Number 2 and 3 ran into the forest. They just wanted to get away from their sensei. Taro laughed. This was going to be fun. The Kimimaro cameo last chapter didn't dispose of the capture Sasuke arc. Kimimari served Orochimaru, and the young hidden sound long before the Chunin selection exams. In this AU, he is already dead, killed by Taro. On superpowering various ninja techniques, I hope Naruto's ideas and techniques aren't ridiculously strong, but even if they are, he knows the weaknesses of his techniques. For example, Naruto will have a technique for raising an army of puppet clones out of nothing. The technique, if used under perfect conditions, will be as unstoppable as the Yondaime Hokage's Flying Thunder God. But it has problems and drawbacks, namely needing time to prepare and a high level of surprise to be effective. One could have destroyed or mutilated the tri-pronged kunai necessary for the 4th's techniquer. As you will see, one could move out of the range of the preparations Naruto needs to make for his puppet clones. Both techniques depend upon surprise. If the surprise is gone, then the technique isn't so unstoppable. How to construct micro-puppets? Yes, they are very, very small. And Naruto won't get anything smaller than lice. In the beginning, Naruto made them with great difficulty. At some point it would have occurred to Naruto to create shadow clones and to henge them into smaller and smaller shapes. Smaller eyes and hands would have an easier time make tiny creations. I'm glad people are enjoying the story so far. Chapter 8. Taro Mark 9 guided his 3 genin to the village hidden in the leaves. For the first time in years, Naruto rode in the belly of his puppet. That had necessitated a return to a hollow puppet design. But the overall puppet was a far cry from the Taro Mark 1. Fools who thought puppets could only be made from wood were wrong, like those performers in Suna so many years ago. The experiments on animals had been sickening, but this new Taro had a living skin and functioning blood vessels and a perfect chakra network. Naruto was now 14. But he thought of himself as a father figure for his genin. He was a short little teenager inside the puppet, but he appeared a towering figure of knowledge. He didn't act young. He couldn't afford such a luxury. This whole enterprise, primarily hiding so long inside and behind puppets, was the work of a madman, Naruto liked to think to himself. There were moments when he reveled in the notion that he was different from anyone else in the whole world. He had been gone from his homeland for 6 years, and had not spoken to another person in his true guise since then. It was painful in so many ways to return, but he couldn't send his genin into Konoha without venturing there himself. He knew his own mind was broken, that he was dangerously insane, that his techniques and ideas were beautiful and horrible in the same instant, as glorious as stripping bald rabbits of their skins in order to give a puppet the appearance of life. His biggest concern: he had no idea what he would do when he saw the old man. Would a finger twitch, a Hearthstone puppet clone spring up and decapitate the Hokage? He didn't know. That anger still festered inside Naruto. It had fermented into obsession, probably, and into the kind of genius that didn't appear very often. He would gain strength. He would prove the Hokage wrong, no matter the cost. Taro turned to look at his single file of genin behind him. Rough and weak in the beginning, the dregs of what grass had to offer. Throwaways. Not anymore. Taro and his genin team were the only team selected to represent Hidden Grass Village in this tournament. In the years since Taro had been a jounin, Grass's reputation had risen. They still didn't qualify to have a leader considered a Kage, nor did they want one, but they were a rising power. It was necessary to continue to show power. Send only the best. 14 other active genin teams would wait until the Chunin selection exam was hosted by Grass in 6 months. Taro and his team were deemed strong enough to hold up to whatever underhanded tricks were likely in a foreign tournament like this. In fact, in the Jounin lounge, Taro's genin team was referred to as that pack of animals. They'd all come a long way. First off, they learned to cease the pointless chatter when traveling or training. They were ninja, not gossipy traveling salesmen. Then Taro had broken every one of their bad habits from the academy, ranging from lazy taijutsu stances to an inability to move silently through the grass or the sand or over the water. Finally, he had each of them test out a wide range of techniques and styles. He wanted all of them to find the best things for them in addition to having at least a passing familiarity with the entire range of ninja techniques. Number 1, the silver-haired young man, had become highly proficient in weapons techniques and genjutsu creation, all in pursuit of becoming a trapping expert. Unlike his first experience failing at hiding in a stand of bamboo, Number 1 was now good enough to give Taro some difficulty locating the boy's traps, if Taro didn't use his unfair advantage with micro-puppets as scouts. He was superb at hiding a variety of weapons and then covering them naturally and with subtle genjutsu. More than one missing nin had fallen victim to Number 1's efforts. Number 2, the formerly mouthy girl, had poured through Konoha's stolen medical scrolls. She turned her nose up at the chakra scalpels that many medic nins used to protect themselves on the battlefield. Instead she preferred longer-range attacks. Jutsus to repair horrifying battlefield wounds were perverted into jutsus that gave horrifying battle wounds. The mouthy girly girl was now more vicious than any Chunin Grass currently had and a better strategist. Too bad for the other genin here that, in Grass, a genin could not become a Chunin without participating in the Chunin selection exam at least once. Few rarely returned a second time, even if they hadn't been passed by the official exam criteria. The whole exam was a farce staged for daimyos and the wealthy to watch civilized gladiatorial games every 6 months. It was entertainment, with no other true value. Taro and his team all knew it. Number 3, the formerly somnolescent young man, was an even bigger heavy hitter than Number 2. All of his uniquely crafted jutsu, with Taro's assistance, utilized his affinities of wind and water. In most cases, Number 3 deployed devastating area effect techniques with superheated steam. Even getting tagged by any of Number 3's techniques was enough to break most ninja. They'd been Taro's team for more than 2 years. They were long past D-ranked missions. Rather, they were the only genin team regularly running Hunter Nin type operations. The bounties on runners from IWA and other hidden villages were substantial and now made up a good deal of the budget in Grass. Naruto was proud of them. They were superb. As a team they'd be able to take down any single jounin in Grass or Stone, or even Hidden Leaf. Of course, he never told them that. He found that insults and impossible training regimes worked better. Instead of breaking like cheap glass, these diamonds in the rough had the crisp faces of a beautiful stone. Taro held up his arm and the 4 of them stopped moving. He turned to face his students and motioned them off the road. We are within 5 kilometers of Hidden Leaf. Once we enter the walls, we will speak only in code or through hand signals unless absolutely necessary. Understood? 1, 2, and 3 all nodded. This village will seem very welcoming. In my own time here, I have observed that failing. People who enter Hidden Leaf believe they are safe because Hidden Leaf is supposed to be invulnerable, the strongest of all the hidden villages. People, even experienced ninja, relax their guard here. Let me remind you to always be on your guard. Hidden Leaf is deceptively welcoming. It is a dangerous place, especially when it opens its doors to the jounin genin teams from other villages during a tournament like this one. I will be very displeased with all of you if any of you is harmed in this place. You are genin of Grass and have proven satisfactory in your acquisition of skills. Number 2 raised her hand. Number 4, you sound like you dislike this village? Taro nodded. That is correct. It is the reason I am giving you this warning. Why, Number 4? Taro was quiet a moment. A ninja village is a military installation, by definition. In this place, they have forgotten that. They proclaim open principles, rule by military and civilians, a respect for peace and prosperous life and well-treated ninja. The truth, in my infiltration work, is very different. That Sasuke is a hard, horrible bastard. Everyone knows that. The Hokage, known as the god of shinobi in these parts, is a kind, powerful, respectable gentleman, but he's done things even worse than that Sasuke would even dream. We're ninja, but we're often taken in by surface appearances. I despise this place and I would be sure that none of you are hurt here. Number 2 wasn't done with her questions yet. If you hate this place, why did you agree to bring us here? Because we're the best. Grass must live up to its fine reputation. That gave slight smiles to the genin team. It was as close to a compliment as they would ever hear. My final words on this topic. Be careful here. This place is more political than any other village I've been in, and I've been to all of them. They will sacrifice a ninja or 100 ninja to save a civilian if it would make them look good to the eyes of the wider world. They claim to have a will of fire, but their strength is a sham. When you come up against them in battle, you will find them weak. Do not kill them, do not martyr them, rather, expose their weaknesses and hobble them. Questions? The genin had nothing to say. They had their orders. Maim and wound the others in the tournament, expose the weakness. The 4 ninjas arrived at the main gate at noon. A bored chunin looked at them and then demanded papers. Taro handed over the invitation. In exchange, the chunin gave each of them a pass to be in Konoha for the exam. Taro gestured that he would give the team a brief tour through the village before taking them to their quarters. Taro passed by the Ninja Academy, site of the first part of the exam, the Hokage Tower, several training fields, the famed Konoha bathhouse, and several markets and grocery stores. The quartet returned and took up a single room in the Running River Hotel. Once inside, the place was scoured for surveillance and several types were discovered. They left the bugs in place and continued using only code and hand signals. This was not unexpected. The 3 genin and their jounin sensei assembled tents in the room and slept peacefully through the night. The exam starting the next day would mark a change in the status quo. It would be a great, terrible, perfect day. His genin team easily passed the written and psychological portion of the test. Taro had actually done worse things to his genin than this Ibiki fellow ever promised to do. Taro had suggested several out-of-the-way locations for his genin to train. Taro, and Naruto inside of him, were walking up the Hokage monument, a place Naruto had once loved. He stood on top of his father's head and speculated. What would a normal life have been like? What would he have been like with a human leg and a Konoha Ninja Academy education? There were no answers, no surety. His mind wandered until he felt a tingle come up a chakra string. Then a few more. Then a lot. The micro-puppets watching over his genin reported a massive disturbance. Taro ran down the face of the monument, and followed his chakra strings back to the source of the disruption. The closer he got, the better he could feel the foreign chakra. It was stronger than he'd ever felt before, in order above anything else. Not even the old man felt like this, but then Naruto had never seen him in a battle mode. When he arrived in an odd cemetery near to a training ground, he had to smile. His 3 genin were dishing out everything they had. They weren't winning, but they were holding back a ridiculously strong opponent. Hell, it was one of the Sannin. The Snake Lord, Orochimaru. He looked uncannily like his last bingo book photo, like he hadn't aged a day. Taro was worried now. He'd been confident his team could overwhelm any jounin, but battling a Sannin to a standstill was a ridiculously impossible task. He wondered if he would be up to this task. He'd certainly never experienced anyone that challenging. Taro leapt between his exhausted students and the Sannin. As he made the distracting move of drawing his sword from his back, dozens of micro-puppets the size of fleas slammed into the snake Sannin and injected small doses of chakra poison. One of number 3's steam attacks managed to nick the temporarily stunned Sannin. Then Taro's sword, enrobed in vigorously swirling wind chakra, drew blood. The Sannin tried to make the hand seals for some technique, but realized quickly that his chakra wasn't flowing right. Anger coursed over his face. He had apparently mastered a seal-less shunshin as he disappeared seconds later. Taro remained vigilant. The snake Sannin was known as a tricky bastard. Perhaps he had a way to overwhelm the chakra poison. After 2 minutes, Taro relaxed his guard and dropped down to check on his students. His genin were wrung out, but otherwise unharmed. Taro cautioned them not to speak until they were someplace safe. He set them off at a rapid pace and kept track of their general health. None of them were injured or bleeding, although number 1 seemed to realize the very high level of difficulty of the person they just fought. Naruto led them to one of the training fields packed with tall trees and dense vegetation. It wasn't far from the Forest of Death, site of the next portion of the Chunin selection exam. He motioned his team to sit. Are you all well? Number 1 seemed to be going into shock. I thought we were going to die. Taro nodded. Number 3 was breathing hard, having consumed a lot of chakra in the battle. Who the hell was that? One of the Sannin, Orochimaru. Number 2 shivered and looked instantly pale. We fought off a Sannin? You did very well, number 2. You held off a very skilled ninja for 2 minutes. It was good you maintained your active awareness protocols. How did you know we were in trouble, number 4? Number 1 asked. You're my students. I wouldn't leave you in a potentially dangerous place like Hidden Leaf without some way of tracking you. Thank you, number 1 said. I don't remember anything about the Sannin, number 4. Who are they? Number 3 asked. A genin team trained by the eventual 3rd Hokage. They became very powerful and each acquired powerful summoning contracts. They are the kind of show and tell ninjas I warned each of you from becoming. They each have substantial skills, but when in trouble they rely upon outside power such as their boss summons. Naruto could see the value of a summons. He knew his father had contracted with the toads. But Naruto knew exactly who his godfather was, a godfather he'd never met before. He did not have any reason to feel charitably toward the Sannin. Jiraiya would have a lot to answer for should Naruto ever run into him. His students were still trying to process all this. Taro continued with his explanation. Orochimaru, in particular, is a pox on humanity. He's not the worst thing out there, but he is another significant Konoha mistake that they never bothered to clean up. He's like toxic waste dumped into a pristine lake. Poisons everything he touches. The group sat quietly and slowly came back to proper color. Heart rates went down. Adrenaline flows began to taper off. What do we do now, number 4? You tell me exactly what happened. Did he say anything to you? Number 1 shook his head. The first I knew I heard a creepy laugh when we were walking back from training. I dodged to the right to avoid a kunai in the back. The others added in their remembrances. Orochimaru neither said nor did anything to indicate his purpose in attacking Taro's team. He was going for the kill. Are you going to inform Konoha officials? Number 2 asked. Yes. I suppose I will. If I don't, Grass won't be able to lodge a protest after this fiasco is over. Konoha can't even keep its famed criminals out of its borders. Taro escorted his team to their shared room in the hotel and set up several traps. Number 1 added his own traps to the mix. Taro also unleashed a variety of micro-puppets to keep watch over his students. I will return with dinner in an hour or so. I'm sure I don't have to tell you to keep the door closed. Taro made the familiar journey to the Hokage Tower, and wondered if it would just be easier to inscribe a couple hundred exploding seals throughout the building, rather than talking to the beasts who work there. He stalked inside the building, ducking to get in the door. I need to see the Chunin exam coordinator. Now, he was a foreigner, by his height, but his voice alone got people moving around. A few minutes later, he was escorted up to see the Hokage along with 3 other ninja. Jounin of Grass, the old man said, I am coordinating these exams myself. My section heads were just in here discussing the event. How may I help you? You can explain why my genin were attacked this afternoon and by a former Konoha ninja. The Hokage leaned forward in his seat. This is a serious charge. Can you describe the man who attacked your students? Yes, I drove him off in the end. It was your student, Orochimaru. Taro didn't get to say much more as he had to dodge a kunai thrown by one of the examiners. That snake bastard was here and you nobody of all people, claimed to have driven him off. After 30 minutes of pointless discussion, wherein this Anko person related many of her hatreds of her former sensei, Taro excused himself. I must return to my students. I will be lodging a formal protest after the exam. Your security is pitiful. The Hokage tried to stop Taro and apologize, but the tall ninja was surprisingly nimble and fast. If this is true, Orochimaru can't mean anything good for us, the Hokage opined. Do we need to change the second exam? Or cancel the whole thing? He's here for a reason, and now he's got some punk Grass Jounin who managed to chase him off. He's got his ego bruised. He's not going away. Ibiki consented to a change of exam. Enko proposed staging the second exam, but with Henge Ninja, in order to capture or kill the snake Sannin. Gecko Hate had no firm opinion. In the end, the Hokage talked himself out of changing the exam. No, it's tradition to have a fight in the forest of death. We would not be able to create a satisfactory replacement in less than 12 hours. The second exam will proceed as designed. May Kami bless us and protect the genin. Chapter 9. Taro had his genin calm and collected by 5 the next morning. He signaled that they were leaving to eat. Naruto had them in a deserted training ground 5 minutes later. He pulled out a small scroll and unsealed a massive quantity of food. He pushed a reasonable quantity of food off the sealing scroll and then collapsed the storage seal again. Eat. It may be the last normal meal you have in some time, Taro said. None of the genin objected. None of them spoke until the food was gone. They had all been trained to take food when it was offered, to take sleep whenever possible. Their questions could wait. Taro ate little and started speaking once number 3 finished eating. I have not heard about any cancellations, so I have to assume that the decrepit Hokage did nothing with my warning. They may have people patrolling the exam area, but it would take a large group of trained ninja group with highly complementary skills, like you three to even budge a Sannin who didn't want to leave. Thinking back over the situation yesterday, you were lucky that the Sannin didn't pull out his major techniques. He must have been trying to be subtle with his infiltration. Inside that forest or in other places, who knows? Whatever happens is not going to be anything good. He could pull out a technique strong enough to burn a quarter of that forest, I have no doubt. Or he could summon Manda, the boss snake. The damage that particular summon could inflict would be massive. We were lucky yesterday. He underestimated you once. He won't do it again. Okay? Warning over. The 3 shared looks. What should we do, number 4, if he returns? Number 1 asked. The risk is low you'll run into him again. His plan, whatever it is bigger than 3 genin from grass. So, try to ignore this threat for now. Strike fast, strike hard, hamstring everyone you come across. But if you come across anyone with the feel of Orochimaru's chakra, flee. I had hoped this wouldn't be necessary, but it seems it is. Taro reached into one of his pockets and pulled out 3 small carved blocks of wood. He handed a rhinoceros sculpture to number 1, a wolf sculpture to number 2, and dragon sculpture to number 3. These are of my creation. In a dire emergency, channel chakra, as much as you can spare, into these. The more chakra you pour into it, the larger and more powerful these guardians become. Number 3 looked confused. Is this a summon animal? Taro shook his head. No, this is an autonomous puppet that expands and activates when you channel chakra into it. It will follow simple instructions from the one who activated it. It was inspired by summoned creatures, but it doesn't require a contract. Number 2 turned her sculpture over and over. How big will it get? Taro looked up and saw it was still an hour until daybreak. I have another in my pocket. Why don't I show you? Taro pulled out a carved statue of an orangutan and channeled his chakra into it. As it began to expand, he threw it 30 feet away at the edge of the clearing. 15 seconds later it stopped growing. It was easily as tall as the tallest trees, more than 30 meters tall. The orangutan had long, razor-sharp claws and its face looked angry, terrifying, with a mouth full of teeth. Taro looked up and yelled, "Attack that tree." He pointed. A second later the tree was uprooted and being used as a toothpick in the construct's mouth. The genin were shocked into silence, but not for long. Number 1 got in the first question, how hard is it to damage? Taro smiled. A determined S-class opponent could take it down in a few minutes, maybe 6 or 8. Attacking tiny ninja isn't the strength of these creatures, though. I'm giving them to you more to protect you from giant summons. Orochimaru is known for using summon animals in many of his techniques. The rest of the morning passed in training and discussions regarding how best to handle the Forest of Death. Taro had heard several hints from Konoha Jounin about this segment. The fools couldn't keep their lips shut even during a test. Taro walked his students to the test beginning. They didn't notice it, but he left a few hundred micro-puppets scattered on his students. Half of them were loaded with chakra poison seals. The other half were loaded with a paralysis solution. Such an arsenal could give his students a needed advantage in an ambush. He left his genin at the staging area. He would be tracking their progress through his micro-puppets. High levels of chakra in an area vibrated right down the chakra strings, like a primitive form of communication. Taro had prepared them and equipped them with emergency protections. They would do well. Taro had to ponder the bigger issues. What exactly was going on in this stupid village? Security had always been relaxed. After all, Naruto had escaped at the age of 8 and returned without notice at age 9. But not to notice a Sannin entering the village, not to up the readiness of the ninja corps when foreigners were in town. Did they want to be invaded and conquered? It certainly seemed like dereliction of duty. It didn't take long for Taro to find where some of the other jounin were waiting out the second exam, a dive bar near to the largest ninja store in Konoha. Taro took in the various hideouts. Only a couple from Konoha, Rain had a few, Suna had one, a few of the smaller villages, like Waterfall and Tea, and one was a musical note, which Taro didn't recognize. The one wearing the note scowled at Taro before schooling his expression. Interesting. Taro ordered a beer and sat down. He was going to get a reading of the room. It didn't take long. The Suna jounin walked over to Taro's table and sat down. I hear you're one tough son of a bitch, the jounin stated. Taro laughed. Bunch of gossipy old women, instead of ninjas. About damn right. I'm called Paku, sensei to the most ragtag group of genin I've ever seen. I'm Taro of the river. My students will do well. Paku swallowed some beer and then smirked. Tell me, is it true you ran into a certain snake-like man yesterday? Taro raised his bottle and smiled. I see. I'd be real curious how a guy like you can drive off someone like Orochimaru. Taro realized this was more than idle gossip now. The man was fishing for a reason. He had the slightest tone of desperation about him. Taro began to open his mouth to respond, when he felt vibrations of a sort come down his chakra strings. His genin were nearing something unnatural. He took direct control of a dozen micro-puppets that flew out of the clothing they were hiding in. 100 meters away, the Suna genin team, or their smallest teammate, was destroying another team. A bloodbath. The chakra was wrong. It was demonic, and it came from the small ninja. What was it? As Naruto watched more and more of the horror, he had an awful realization. The redhead was Jinchuriki. Not only that, he was directly accessing demonic chakra and skills. A shiver went down Naruto's back. Suna had brought an undeclared demon container. They were up to something. The way this jounin was unsubtle, probing for information. Curious, disturbing. If such a thing did happen, you'll have to read about when I finally get around to publishing my memoirs. Taro smiled. Paku laughed. Very few ninja lived old enough to sit down and write memoirs. I like you, grass guy. You tell your genin how to get through the forest? No. I didn't get a copy of the plans. Did Konoha hand those out? A shake of the head. Just to their jounin, it sounds like. Well, cheating is a tradition, isn't it? Paku finished off his drink and stood up. The only ones who yell about cheating are the losers. Taro nodded and tilted his beer back. I'll drink to that. Chapter 10. Taro's 3 genin came across one of the teams from Rain 30 minutes after entering the Forest of Death. They seemed not to notice the grass team as they began a watch. The team exchanged hand seals as they debated a plan. Number 2 was in favor of spilling a little blood. However, it was number 3, the steam user, who suggested something more subtle and far less likely to give away their position in the forest. Number 1 laid a genjutsu to keep the rain ninja wandering in circles. That was fun to watch. Number 2 mixed up a mild hallucinogenic poison that would take a week or longer to exit their systems. She looked a bit cross that she wouldn't be allowed to cause anyone's arm to rot off or anyone's appendix to burst. Number 3 collected the sealed poison vial from number 2 and gave the kunoichi a hard look. He just hoped that she hadn't prepared a distillation of sarin or something equally lethal to spite numbers 1 and 3. After finally deciding the poison was what they had asked for, number 3 timed his throw and sent the vial high into the air, a high arcing curve designed to put the vial over its 3 targets. When it was just a few feet above all 3 of the rain ninja, number 3 sent a small focused blast of steam. The vial cracked and rained down the poison. Within moments, one hit the ground shaking. The others started attacking each other. They were simple to disarm and incapacitate using nerve clusters after that. The grass genin threw tree branches over their still breathing victims and counted it as a success. It was easier than going fishing with a stack of exploding notes. They'd been given a heaven scroll before the gates to this exam begun. With this attack, they recovered an earth scroll 40 minutes into the exam. It was good. They looked forward to discussing the operation in the after-action conference with number 4. The only thing he could scold them for was putting together the plan too slowly and arguing too much about it. Now the question was, what next? A few hand signals between Taro's genin settled the question. End the test or continue? They remain in the forest a bit longer, deal with a few other competitors, gauge up the people who might actually be tough. Number 1 led them deeper into the forest, knowing that a team from Waterfall had entered not too far from where he and 2 and 3 had entered. Unfortunately for that plan, the lone team from Sand was already slaughtering the easy marks from Waterfall slaughtering, literally. The short redhead had total control of Sand and a total lack of sanity. The genin stayed hidden until well after the Suna genin passed away. With hand seals, they compared notes. Number 1, red boy on a whole other level. Would steam hurt him? 3? Number 3, don't want to find out. Girl was wind user. Could push steam back in my face. Number 2, my jutsu go through wind fine. Number 4 has tested extensively. Number 3, what about painted boy? Number 1, curious bundle on back. Maybe puppet user who hasn't learned any storage ceiling? Number 4 lectured on strengths and weaknesses. Likely into deception and hiding. Number 2, let's get away from redhead now. Don't want to see that desert funeral thing again. The trio encountered 3 more teams and trapped their minds and poisoned them without ever being detected. They sealed the unneeded scrolls they recovered into leaves or other forest detritus. It was a standard battle tactic, at least standard as far as their teacher had instructed them. Denial and destruction of critical resources. They were beginning to think about heading for the tower when they felt more of the chakra from the cemetery, the snake Sanin's chakra. This time it wasn't a little bit. The ninja was throwing around some massive techniques. He had come into the forest then, even after number 4 had warned the Konoha officials. Number 4 had been right so far in that the Sannin hadn't come to see them again. What was he here for? During a test of simple genin? None knew. All 3 would admit to at least being nervous. None would own up to feeling sheer terror. Number 2, number 4 was right. These people are fools. Train up powerful shinobi without regard to whether they're at all sane. Number 1, don't need a lecture. 2, need a plan. Stay in forest overnight or head to tower? Number 3, I don't care to face that freak again. He's throwing around chakra now that would take us down in seconds. We survived yesterday because he was trying to be sneaky. Number 2, fine. Tower, here we come. They encountered only a single additional team in the forest on their way to the central building. The all-kunoichi team from T-Country was poisoned without incident, their scrolls sealed and hidden. They arrived safely just after midnight. They unsealed their scrolls and were greeted by a leaf chunin moments later. They stopped on the way to their quarters only to grab food. As they got to their quarters they noticed the name plate on the next suite over. Hidden Sand. It was going to be a long 4 days trapped with those loonies from Suna. Taro thought about going to sleep after he felt his team reach safety in the tower. But he couldn't get his brain to shut down. Operating a variety of puppets like Naruto did kept his mind continually occupied, and it was circling around Orochimaru and the oddities with Suna. Sleep sometimes came and it sometimes stayed away like an upset, pouting child. Taro got up and began wandering the village. He hadn't had a chance to do that in the light of day, not with his trio to keep on the straight and narrow. He walked down streets and remembered what they'd smelled like in the daylight with people moving on them and sun beating down. He meandered near to where his apartment building had stood. The fire he'd started had evidently destroyed a portion of the building. It had been razed but nothing else yet stood in its place. He walked over to that ramen stand he'd loved. It was closed now, but the scent of flavored broth hung tauntingly in the air. There was that playground that was usually deserted in the evenings. He had first used a swing set there. He decided, what the hell? For 20 minutes he pretended to be a kid, rather than a teenager trapped inside a puppet. He swung and he laughed, and he tried to think good thoughts about the place he'd come back to. There weren't a lot of good memories, mostly of the old man and his officer in that ramen stand talking, listening to Naruto. That was before his cold, bureaucratic period, of course. Eventually he left the park. He was close now, close to a place he didn't want to visit. He hesitated to walk down a certain street, but eventually his feet took him to where his heart didn't want to go. This was where he'd been crushed between two carts. This was the alley he'd been chased down. This was the store where he tried to buy 2 plums. A sleepless Naruto wondered what had ever happened to the man. Was he the Kurosawa of Kurosawa Grocers? Did he live upstairs in the apartment above the store? Was his light on up there now? Taro jumped up and took a peek inside. He saw that hateful man, much aged, passed out in a chair. The wasteful lights were on inside the apartment. Naruto could see everything so clearly. The cause of so much pain had both his legs, had his health, was free to come and go and do as he pleased. He hadn't been forced to become an exile. He hadn't been forced to reverse engineer techniques in order to get training to be a ninja. He wasn't living the life of another, watching life on the outside pass him by. The old man was free, completely free. Something snapped inside of Naruto's mind. Anger, blinding red rage poured through him. He didn't know he had this kind of thing inside him. Was it the fox coming loose? Or was this from inside his own heart and mind? His arms ripped the window from the building. The Taro puppet was designed to be 10 times stronger than a human body. As the aged man woke from his sleep, he didn't realize the danger he was in. What? Why are you in my apartment, foreigner? Taro said nothing. His arms began raining blow after blow down onto the man's body. Ligaments cracked and tore. Bones chipped, broke, and ground together. Muscles sustained intolerable amounts of damage. Within 30 seconds, the grocer who refused to sell Naruto plums, who chased him away to meet 2 crushing carts in a busy street, who never received punishment of any sort, was dead. His body looked like a small calves that had fallen into a pulverizing machine. Blood, and meat, and sinew dripped onto the carpet, spread everywhere. When he stopped breaking a dead man's bones and tissue, Taro surveyed the bloody mess. Naruto captured the true image of his rage and promptly vomited inside the confined space of Taro's hollow center. The stomach acids burned slightly on his mouth, face, chest, and hands. He roused himself from the red rage he couldn't stop seeing in front of him. He needed to get away. He needed to wash up. He needed to pray to Kami for forgiveness. He needed to check his seal to be sure that the fox wasn't loosening his bonds. Taro leapt away from the damaged apartment, jumping from roof to roof until he reached a tranquil training ground. He cleaned himself in a stream running through the property. Naruto had to exit Taro and then submerge his Taro puppet in the water to get out all the vomit. But the running water did nothing to wash away Naruto's current self-loathing. He had finally given in to his impulse for wrath. And it was horrible. He climbed back inside of Taro and slept the night in the forest. Finally, he did fall asleep. Hard asleep. Slept better than he had in years. The next day, a stunned and dismayed Hokage would visit the crime scene. He had never before in his tenure as Hokage visited a civilian crime scene, but he had kept the name Kurosawa in the back of his mind. He had expected something to eventually happen to the man, but he hadn't expected this. No, not at all. A piece of the man's cracked skull had been flung to the ceiling. It hung there still, held in place by drying gore. This was the work of a Naruto he didn't know. Or, the Hokage reminded himself, the work of someone who knew of Naruto, or acted on his command. It might not be Naruto's hand that did this, just his voice ordering it. The style was all wrong, for one thing. Naruto's puppetry was elegant and hard to detect. The Hokage had fallen victim to the same trick twice, a feat few could claim to have gotten past the god of shinobi. This attack was more like a mauling. The ex-ninja didn't have an unbroken bone larger than a few centimeters. What had happened to Naruto in the last 6 years? The Hokage had recognized that the boy was angry. Was this brutality a result of his tenet? He hadn't felt demonic chakra last night. Why was Naruto back after his self-imposed exile? To do more of this? To kill more Leaf civilians or ninja? Had he snuck in with all the foreign ninja in town for the tournament? The Hokage felt old, bone-weary old. It was most disturbing. The Hokage prayed that Naruto had not done this thing, but he could do nothing but believe that the small blonde boy was involved. Chapter 11. Taro regarded the preliminary eliminations with a bored expression. He didn't have a clue why there was a prelim round. Only 5 of 22 teams finished the Forest of Death exam. Surely the rich civilians, lords, and ninjas could stand to watch 15 competitors demonstrate their skills. Taro looked over the genin standing below him. The grass team, the sand team, an odd bunch from Sound, and 2 teams from Konoha. By the way the hidden Leaf members looked, they were surprised so few Leaf teams finished. Apparently 3 rookie teams had been entered and none of them acquired both scrolls. Indeed, one of the teams had suffered a fatality, in a Kimichi. The speeches and posturing ended. Taro was only interested a single time in the proceedings. A Konoha genin, silver-haired and in glasses, a geek of the highest order, excused himself from the prelims. As he walked out of the venue, Taro's eyes followed him and assessed his physical condition. There was nothing wrong with him, nothing at all. Interesting. A few dozen spy-capacity micro-puppets flew from a storage compartment and made their new home in the genin's hair and clothing. This person merited more observation. Someone with the stones to lie to the Hokage about his physical condition was either crazy or up to something. the matches began. Taro watched to see what the current standard of genin was. There were some interesting developments, but most of it was fairly low level. The best match was a rather flashy battle between a lithe leaf genin and that red-headed monster from sand. Naruto felt a chakra signature surge momentarily. It was one he didn't like. It was suppressed quickly, but Taro was designed to detect things like that. Orochimaru was in the room. The present battle had excited or enraged him. Taro swept his eyes across the room. He felt it again when the red-headed freak almost crushed the leaf genin. There, he was the sounds team sensei, or at least hiding out in his form. Bad, very bad news. Taro's eyes remained fixed on the battles, but Naruto inside him was keeping an eye on the sound genin. Then something came down the chakra strings attached to the silver-haired genin. Kabuto was also speaking with Orochimaru. All of Naruto's attention went into listening in via his spying micro-puppets. You dropped out again, Kabuto? The Sannin asked. The smile on his face looked cruel. I need to remain unsuspected for some while yet. Then I can reveal more of who I really am. Fine. Please work with our allies to set everything into motion. I expect our allies to have plenty of legitimate reasons to be in and out of the leaf. My observations, Kabuto said, are that our ace in the hole will perform as expected. I followed him around before the tournament started. The leaf will be in for a treat. I will let you on your way then. One final thing. See what you can learn about the jounin from grass. He has a rather large, interfering nose. He might need to learn a lesson. Information first though. Yes, my lord. The pair parted and Naruto lost himself in thought. He followed Kabuto on his viewing screen, but the genin went nowhere else of interest. The collaborator, Kabuto, had information that Naruto wanted for himself. The genin didn't know it yet, but his life was forfeit. Taro paid half a mind to the rest of the exhibition, but he couldn't keep Orochimaru out of his thoughts. The hints were there, but Taro did not know the when and where, the fine details. He really needed a better source of information on the man. Taro stood impassive until the prelims were over and the final round draws were done. He collected his 3 genin, all successful in passing into the finals. It was expected. Come, Taro said. We will be leaving the village now. We're not training in such a place as this for the next month. Relief washed over their faces. None of them had ever been in such a dangerous place as this village before. Orochimaru struck twice. That red-headed kid was a menace. It was tough being on guard all the time. In the preparations for leaving, none of his genin noticed Taro's creation of a half-dozen shadow clones which promptly hinged into other forms. They had a task to complete. As Taro took his students for a last dinner before departing Konoha for a month, the shadow clones approached to where the genin Kabuto was speaking in hushed, rushed tones. The spy micro-puppets captured everything said and now it was time to capture Kabuto himself. Naruto needed to know what this interesting person knew. The shadow clones formed up thick chakra strings. 2 of them coordinated their strike. Kabuto walked away from his meeting and turned down a darkened street when he felt foreign chakra enter his body. Within a second, he lost all control of his muscles and began to fall. Just as quickly he felt something holding him up. It was the shadow clones doing it, of course. One of the 2 shadow clones wielding chakra strings had penetrated Kabuto's spinal cord with chakra and temporarily disrupted the transmission of nerve information at the C5 vertebra. When the technique was released, Kabuto's spinal cord would be undamaged so long as Naruto wished that to happen. The other clone quickly deployed chakra strings to Kabuto's hands, legs, and major joints to keep him from slumping over like a worthless drunk. The other shadow clones hung back in case anything unexpected happened. Kabuto walked to a darkened training ground. The first test of the puppet master technique was a success. In theory, it should work every time, but it was always in practice that things went wrong. One of the shadow clones rifled through Kabuto's belongings and found a blank scroll. The clone traced out a complex sealing array and then placed Kabuto's forehead to the scroll. An application of chakra later and Kabuto was gone, leaving only the scroll. All the shadow clones save for the one clutching the scroll dismissed themselves. That clone walked slowly toward the village gate. He waited outside the village for nearly an hour before Taro plucked the rather valuable scroll from the shadow clone. That clone then returned inside the village and began its primary duty, espionage. As Naruto thought about the storage scroll in his hand, he wondered just how things had gotten that bad, that wrong in his former home. Spies walking everywhere, S-ranked ninja popping in and out. Taro needed a better handle on the place, and what the snake Sannin was planning. He needed accurate information. Too bad this genin Kabuto lay in the way. It would be most unpleasant for him if he chose to be difficult. Number 4, do you want your sculptures back? Number 3 asked. Hold on to them until the end of this tournament. Better you have something in reserve. They had traveled through the night, and only begun talking once they hit the grass country border. Are we taking missions while we're back in grass? Number 1 asked. Taro shook his head. No. You are on training leave for the next month. I am going to help each of you to create at least one new original technique, plus I am going to ensure that you have the techniques and information necessary to handle your opponents. We have a Hyuga, a Jinchuriki, and some type of bizarre medical experiment attaching sound-making machines to a human body. It's rather distasteful. Naruto spent the rest of the run back to the village explaining what he knew of the Byakugan, what he knew of the Bijou and those humans unfortunate enough to imprison them, and his hypotheses about Orochimaru and the Hidden Sound Village, his students were less than impressed and were openly debating whether they should return to Konoha at all. Number 3 was visibly upset at having to fight a Jinchuriki. Stop it. Number 3 already has the beginning of a technique to deal with Gaara. We'll need to get your steam even hotter. What will that do? Number 4. We will increase the pressure exerted by your air affinity to increase the temperature of your steam. If we get it right, your superheated steam will be able to penetrate even sand armor, I'd expect. The redhead's ultimate defense is not perfect. The genin were not convinced. Taro led his students to his apartment and offered them tea. Let me explain. Every technique, no matter how imposing, has flaws. So long as a ninja is aware of the flaws, he or she can adapt or compensate for them. But this Jinchuriki has no other techniques we've seen other than his san. His body is thin and weak. He does not exercise. I doubt he even has a taijutsu style. He's relied upon a single style of ninja art which we will be picking apart and destroying theoretically during our training period and then for real in 1 month. Number 3 looked a little less pale, but he wasn't fully convinced. Fine, perhaps I can use a steam attack against him, but how do I use it while protecting myself from his sand? Taro nodded. It was an excellent question. You have realized the weakness of your steam. It's powerful offensively, but offers little defensive protection. Sometimes it is necessary to pair techniques together in order to minimize weaknesses. Can you think of something that would stop sand? Number 1 nodded. A water technique of some sort. Something that would soak the sand. Number 2 nodded. Or wind. Something that flings back whatever sand approaches you. Okay, I get it. This isn't a death sentence, Number 3 said. No. Number 3 will win his battle if I have anything to do with it. You will be ready, I promise. Naruto gave his genin the morning off to recuperate from their vicious training cycles of the previous day. He'd worked up a bit of technique using his wind affinity to mimic Gaara's sand-wielding ability. From what he'd heard of Orochimaru and Kabuto's conversation, Gaara was involved in all of this. He wanted his students prepared to deal with him. He'd blasted Number 3 with it for hours and forced Numbers 1 and 2 to take an hour each. He'd helped Number 2 with a vicious new technique, vicious and non-lethal. She had Hyuga Niji to deal with, and Taro didn't especially want her to kill him. Almost everything in Number 2's quiver was lethal and messy. Number 1 had to go against that medical experiment from sound. He was working on a genjutsu that inflicted pain proportional to whatever the end snare thought they were inflicting. They were all becoming excited about their upcoming matches, even Number 3. Their change in attitude, almost as much as the beating they'd received in training yesterday, earned them a day off. There was also the fact that Naruto was excited to finally sit down to talk to Kabuto. He made the journey to the largest of his bolt holes in grass country. He'd long since turned it into his laboratory. He had a room for distilling poisons. He had a room for copies of the jutsu scrolls he'd collected and stolen. 2 rooms held various experiments with different micro-puppets and his stick of tools and supplies to create them. He now needed to make a new room for his newest acquisition. It only took an hour to carve it with a rather useful earth technique. He fashioned a rather substantial door and hung it. Naruto, still inside his Taro puppet, walked inside. He pulled out a special storage scroll and set it on the floor. He unraveled the 100 chakra strings and made ready to unseal the scroll's contents. He pumped chakra into the sealed scroll. A confused, immobilized genin appeared on the stone floor. Taro's chakra strings pressed up against Kabuto's spinal cord again, keeping him immobile. Taro had spent a few hours preparing a restraining device he wanted to test out on this genin. Kabuto finally roused from his enforced stupor. Where am I? Somewhere very safe, Taro said. You'll be my guest now, genin of Konoha, or are you infiltrator from sound? Kabuto's face tensed. How are you doing this? Keeping me frozen? I'm not about to start giving away my secrets, am I? I would like to talk about Orochimaru and his plans for the Chunin selection exam. I'm not telling you anything, Kabuto spat. You will, little genin, you will if you ever expect to eat. I would rather die. Taro smiled. Let me fit you up with your restraints. Taro pulled out long strips of something. They didn't look like paper or cloth. They had extensive and tiny seals all over their surface. He affixed one strip to Kabuto's neck where it promptly dissolved into the man's neck, leaving only the seals partially visible. Taro stripped the rest of Kabuto's clothing and wound the strange strips all over his torso, his arms, and his legs. Only after the last strip was applied to Kabuto's body did Taro apply chakra to the seals now permanently tattooed on his body. Taro stepped back and threw a lightweight sheet over the naked genin's body. Then he withdrew the chakra strings, keeping Kabuto paralyzed. Kabuto started to move and then he leapt at Taro. Taro smacked him across the small room. When Kabuto hit the solid stone, he flopped over and stopped moving. Let me be clear. You will never mold chakra again so long as you fight me. You will never mold chakra again if you ever lie to me. With the thought these seals can activate. You have 500 exploding seals etched inside your body now, Kabuto. A horror-stricken Kabuto raised his head up from the floor. How could you do that? How was it possible? A lot of hard work. Now you will tell me what you know of Orochimaru's plans. Be fast about it, and I will find you some lunch. Kabuto didn't like his chances. He had turned on Sasori when Orochimaru offered a better deal. Now this unknown quantity was offering a terrible deal, but it was better than being utterly destroyed. The threatened 500 exploding seals would do more damage to his body than his self-regenerative abilities would heal. I have worked with him for a few years, but I've only ever met with him a handful of times. No. Let's start with what you know of his attack on Konoha. Kabuto's head dipped toward the stone floor. I only know enough to complete my role. I was to ensure that Uchiha Sasuke made it out of the forest alive even if he failed to make it into the finals. I was to layer a genjutsu over the audience at the finals once that Gaara kid begins his fight. Naruto felt sicker and sicker the more he heard of this plot. Kabuto gave over a lot of information, but he didn't seem to possess the full plan. This would all be very problematic. Naruto needed to finish his puppet clone technique. He needed it in his repertoire if things went as badly as he feared. As Taro returned with his students a day before the finals, everyone was in good spirits. They had plans, and backup plans, and had been working on improvisation skills. Taro expected some terrible things to happen in the next day or two. He hadn't passed on his knowledge of the exact details of what was supposed to happen, but he had done everything to prepare them to survive. Trial by fire for everyone involved. The four showed up the morning of the finals. Taro led them through final stretching and sparred with all three of them at the same time. The first two matches went as expected. The medical experiment had but one technique. Number 1 trapped the kid in a genjutsu within seconds. The boy proceeded to attack and attack. His mind was so overwhelmed with redirected pain that the genin's nose began to bleed and he eventually fell over onto the ground, convulsing. Every genin needed to be able to dispel a genjutsu. It was a basic requirement for field operations. The feared Hyuga had a wider range of attacks, but he was a short-distance fighter only. Number 2 preferred medium and long-range attacks. She took a bloody 10 minutes to demolish the pride of the Hyuga. He put up a good fight, but he was completely outclassed. The third match, the Jinchuriki versus number 3, began as expected. The weak redhead deployed his sand and didn't even move around the field of combat. Number 3 used a high-level water technique to soak a good portion of the sand. Then he went to stage 2, an A-, bordering on S-rank technique for superheating and focusing a beam of steam. His use of the technique pierced right through Gaara's remaining sand and his sand armor. It created a hole straight through Gaara's shoulder which began to weep, then gushed blood. The red-headed genin lost it then. And all hell broke loose in the arena. The bad thing which was going to happen had just started. Chapter 12. The many fires inside Hidden Leaf began almost simultaneously. 15 clan compounds, 24 apartment buildings, commercial buildings, everything was fair game. It was a great diversionary tactic performed by 24 infiltrators from Suna. The command and control of the ninja force would break down. People would be trying to put out fires while the major strikes occurred. The more ninja prevented from repelling the major Suna and Oto, the more devastating their entry would be. Oto's trapping experts began their work rigging up the Hokage Tower and the Ninja Academy building. Lord Orochimaru would detonate these buildings once his conquest of Hidden Leaf was complete. While the infiltrators and trappers were inside causing chaos, the heavy hitters from both villages were outside the village walls trying to bring them down. Some of Orochimaru's snake summons were queued up to crash through another section of the wall. It was amazing that the ANBU hadn't even detected these massive forces queuing up outside the village. Orochimaru's personal guards jumped through the city. They had been performing a final search for Kabuto in the interim. The spy appeared to have fled already. Lord Orochimaru would be most put out. Once they made it to the arena, Orochimaru had already captured the Hokage and begun his act of vengeance. The Sound Four molded a massive shield and then performed the jutsu a second time to protect themselves from the Hokage who was trapped inside their bubble. The arrogance of this village, Orochimaru hissed to his opponent on top of the arena, to invite your enemies, to bare your throat to the man, not even to carry a knife to the battle. Where are your ANBU, sensei? Why was this village so easy to destroy this day? Are you truly ready to die? Because I am most eager to kill you. The Hokage and Orochimaru were trading blows back and forth in hand-to-hand combat. Orochimaru wanted to utterly rattle the Hokage before he pulled out his final, devastating technique, the impure resurrection of the Hokage's predecessors in office. It had been a gamble attacking today. The disappearance of Kabuto had almost caused Orochimaru to call of this attack, but when the ANBU and Chunin patrols went as normal, and the village wasn't on a higher security status, he guessed Kabuto hadn't defected to the Hokage's side. He would have to find and punish his infiltrator. Many things necessary for this attack hadn't been done. Kabuto would pay. His medical expertise was valuable, but Orochimaru could not stand a traitor. He was the only one of those permitted in the Hidden Sound. Orochimaru batted away one of his sensei's rather pedestrian techniques. He wished that Sarutobi would haul out his major techniques. He wouldn't want to win against the frail, old man. The Hokage summoned the boss of the apes. He needed to use every tool in his arsenal. But he no longer had the chakra capacity to battle for hours against his student. He knew what the surefire way to end Orochimaru's life was, but he didn't know if he could give himself to the Shinigami for all time the way that Namake's Minato had. It was a horrendous fate for one such as he. To never see his deceased family, his one dead son, his mentors, all of his precious people. Are you ready for a good fight, Enma? He would try to for an unexpected hit. Something that wasn't as devastating as the summoning of the Shinigami. As you wish, old friend, the Ape King said. The Hokage remained nimble and his attacks with a bow would have been devastating to anyone not one of his students. They had spent too many years training against him to be surprised by Sarutobi's style. The snake Sannin continued to taunt and rant, but the Hokage didn't listen to it. He was in this fight to preserve his village. He had lived a long time, but he didn't want to go out when his village was in peril. Not if he could fix his gravest mistake, not if he could somewhat repair his failure allowing Orochimaru to escape when his treacheries were discovered. You've never recognized your own faults, student of mine. If you could not have this village, then you wish to destroy it? Orochimaru laughed. You are a narrow-minded fool, protector of the weak, savior of stranded kittens everywhere. This village is as foolish as it is weak. I am only performing a service, a cleansing wash to get rid of all this rot. The Hokage was not winning, rather, he was slowly losing. The Hokage steeled himself to using the Shinigami summoning technique. It would cost him everything, but he knew he would take his greatest mistake with him. The village deserved this much from him. Orochimaru began the complex process of powering up his impure resurrection technique. He was ready for a bloody fight with powerful servant puppets at his disposal. The Hokage worried that he did not recognize this technique. If it had been developed by his student, it was likely to be powerful and disturbing. He gripped his special staff and prepared to face whatever might come. Then the Hokage disappeared. There was no one more surprised than the Hokage. He had a fraction of a second to recognize that he was trapped in some sort of sealing technique. Enma in his bow form fell to the ground and dispelled. Orochimaru stood, dismayed. His hands were frozen in the final hand seals for his impure resurrection. Where had that old bastard gone? How had he escaped from inside this shield? It was designed to kill anyone or anything that touched it. No. No! Where did he go? Who fucked up? He turned round and round, glaring at his bodyguards. Then he saw Jirobo fall over dead, then Kidamaru. The shields began to waver then. Then Tayuya collapsed. The shields collapsed. Orochimaru had no idea what was happening. He didn't even know it was possible to disrupt the shield. Orochimaru glared at the unfair world. Years of planning rendered useless. He didn't even know how. His mind began to grasp and prepare for the next phases of what he might do. Sarutobi had fled with his life, but Orochimaru could still destroy the village and kill its weaklings. He surveyed the roof and was preparing to jump off to cause more devastation when he felt 1,000 tiny pinpricks all over his body. He staggered at the sensation, then the flood of pain. It had been a very long time since he'd felt anything like that, probably going back to his earliest experiments on himself, to attain immortality. He reeled but did not fall down. His first thought was to flee, as self-preservation was a key trait of any powerful snake, but then his anger and his ego overrode instinct. He wanted to know who had ruined years of planning. So many things had gone wrong. His strongest potential vessel for his immortality technique, the Kagaya boy, had disappeared years ago. Kabuto had disappeared. Some jounin from grass had managed to drive him off with a technique he couldn't unravel. Now this. Orochimaru wanted blood. He wanted guts and brains and bones ground down to meal. He wanted Sarutobi lying dead before him and Konoha little more than ashes blowing away in the wind. Using his best chakra sensing techniques, he tried to locate the source of what was happening and he found something. In great pain, he turned and saw a most unpleasant face. That ninja who'd prevented him from taking the faces of some grass genin. The man who stripped Orochimaru's ability to mold chakra, that ninja would die. You! How did you do this? That shield is the strongest technique of its kind. Tell me and I will give you a swift death. Taro smiled. You are the worst sneaky ninja I've ever seen. I had a very good idea about what you might do today, but you had no idea about me. I wonder what that says about your intelligence gathering, Snake Sannin. Oh, someone revealed to me that you're also quite a thief. Taro yanked his hand. Pain shot through Orochimaru's body as his sword, the grass cutter, stolen the grass country years earlier, ripped through bone, stomach lining, muscle, and skin on its way to Taro's hand. Taro was glad he'd kept returning to probe Kabuto's loosened lips. The existence of this sword inside of Orochimaru's body made this one-time-only attack possible. Anyone with skill in chakra strings could do this, but it took a devious ninja to think of the attack at all. It was very satisfying that Orochimaru's greatest close-range weapon was now turned against him. Orochimaru collapsed. How was that possible? His sword ripped from him, through him? Was this freak a magnetic field user, like that Kazekage his old pal Sasori had been so enamored of? Orochimaru had seen this ninja twice and been slapped like a small child, robbed of chakra molding, and now his sword. How? Why? Everything hurts so much. I suspect you're immune to any poison you'd use, Orochimaru, so that sword wound won't necessarily kill you. But I know you aren't immune to cancer. Those tiny impacts you felt a few moments ago were the seeds of 1,000 small cancers already racing through your body. I estimate you have 5 days before your body fails, your organs eaten away from the inside. From what I understand, you'll have to find a new host. The pale, bleeding Sannin woke from his misery when he realized that this ninja knew about his most secret researches. Someone had betrayed him. Kabuto Karen Sumion very close. Orochimaru pushed himself up from his crumpled position on the arena roof. He began making hand signs, but again realized he couldn't mold chakra. The hole in his torso had apparently torn the chakra network in this body to shreds. "I've heard all about your body swapping technique," the grass jounin said. "Good luck getting away." Your guards seem to be indisposed. That hateful stare from the grass ninja burned itself into Orochimaru's mind. It was a face he would never forget. He would have his revenge. If it took 100 years, he would have this man's life. Orochimaru would still be young, agile, and beautiful, while the ninja before him was old and infirm. If it took that long, Orochimaru would find the old, weak, infirm man and end his life slowly, painfully. The pooling blood reached into Orochimaru's field of vision. He didn't know why he was still alive. This grass ninja could have incinerated him by now, instead of staring. The Sannin felt a hand grasp him, interrupting his dark musings. He looked up and saw it was Sakan. "My lord, I couldn't move until now." "Away. Get us away," Orochimaru rasped out. This would have been an excellent time to have Kabuto around. If he wasn't a traitor. The guard and his lord shined away. Taro smiled. Anyone who threatened his team deserved to die. Taro could have done worse to the snake Sannin, but he relished the idea of tearing that creature apart slowly, piece by piece. He felt an irrational amount of hatred toward the pale ninja, a hatred he would allow himself to quench. Taro walked to the edge of the arena and observed the field of battle below him. The useless Anbu watching Orochimaru's attempted assassination scattered when the Hokage disappeared, gone to locate him or help out repelling the invasion. Taro bent down and picked up an oddly inscribed stone and slipped it into his pocket. The Hokage had never left the dome, of course, just been sealed away into an unconventional storage vessel. A chakra string was perfectly able to pass through that impenetrable shield. Arrogant ninja. Orochimaru knew of Sasori's art and still disregarded its power. The stone felt heavy in Taro's pocket. It had been obvious to any watchers that the Hokage was using all his effort, all his will, and that he was losing. Orochimaru had just been playing with him. Taro needed to keep the old man safe for a while longer. He wanted a word with him, but that wouldn't happen if the rest of this disaster didn't end soon. Taro looked into the distance and saw that the Suna and Oto ninja were still fighting. Their leader was driven from the field, but they'd lose their lives in a pointless, failed battle. Taro had thought long and hard in the last month about what he'd do when Konoha found itself in dire straits. Could he separate out the old man of his memory from the colder Hokage? Could he save the place the old man loved? He could just as easily let the whole place burn. Their arrogance had allowed this attack to occur. Did he really wish to be a savior of some sort? He stopped thinking and acted. He could second-guess himself later. He concentrated and formed two thick chakra cables. The individual strings stretched out and latched onto half-burned boards or fallen stones all through the field of battle. The process of inscribing seals was slower than he wanted. Using 12 individual chakra strings on each nascent heartstone took 30 seconds to get his mass puppet clone technique ready. Naruto intended to name this particular usage of his puppet clone's technique something else, the Flowing Red Death. Nearly as fast as the Yondaime Hokage's Flying Thunder God technique and far more devastating. This was a technique that could destroy armies in seconds, end wars instantly, destroy and level villages. He wished he didn't have to reveal his greatest technique to save this miserable place. Seconds later, Naruto revealed how one ninja could destroy an entire army from a safe distance. His left pinky finger twitched a few millimeters. In front of every ninja Taro could see or otherwise detect a puppet clone erupted, forming up around its heartstone. Each puppet slashed with fire or wind or lightning once or twice, and then each of them disappeared. None of the newly dead even had a chance to blink. The mass slaughter of 200 enemy ninja took less than a quarter second from activation to the clone's dissipation. The few observers would only be able to report seeing a massive sea of red, the color of each puppet's hair, body, and clothing. A signature element of the Flowing Red Death meant to confuse and disorient anyone who might witness the technique. After that, they reported dead bodies as far as the eye could see. No ninja could defend against an attack so unexpected, so rapid, and so devastating. No one targeted did survive. In the coming days many would try to explain the attack and how it worked. No one would succeed at that either. Taro jumped down from the arena roof with the Hokage safely sealed away inside his pocket. He needed to find where his students had gotten to and to see if anyone had dealt with that insane red head from Hidden Sand. Orochimaru was gravely wounded. The main body of the invasion force was destroyed, but Taro suspected that the worst was still to come. Why did he let the Grass Council send him and his team to this Kami-forsaken place in the first place? Chapter 13. A small awed crowd watched as that horrible demonic sand beast took swipe after swipe against massive summons. A wolf larger than the Ninja Academy, a dragon longer than the eastern village wall, a rhinoceros with a horn jabbing in and out of the swirling sand of the raccoon-like abomination. It was a terrifying sort of theater, held in the forest outside the village walls. No one in the crowd had seen anything like it. The guardian animals looked like summons, but they didn't act like them. Indeed, none of the higher-level ninja knew who held contracts like these. They circled and enclosed and delayed the inevitable, except that every time the sand beast attacked one of the other animals, the wolf, or the dragon, or the rhino recovered from the wound and continued on their containment. They seemed to be waiting for something. Thankfully, none of the otherwise useless onlookers one noticed 3 grass genin weary with chakra exhaustion in the woods nearby. They were vulnerable right now and didn't want any attention focused their way. They wouldn't be able to defend themselves against even a determined civilian assassin. It seemed like nothing would tip the balance. The 3 summons versus that sand monster. Then the scene changed. A real summon entered the battle with a tall old man, his shaggy white hair aloft in the wind, on top of his head. The wolf, dragon, and rhino regarded the massive toad for a moment before returning to their confinement of the sand beast. The small red-headed child on top of the sand beast yelled at the white-haired man. They feinted and parried their attacks. Then the redhead smiled a cruel smile and fell asleep. The sand beast increased in strength. It was a demon almost fully in possession of its ancient powers. Jiraiya the toad sage tried everything in his book of riddles. He used massive waves of oil-fueled fire. He tried sinking the sand beast in a massive chakra-driven swamp. Nothing worked. The sand whipped around faster and faster, stronger each passing second. Jiraiya spoke in hushed tones to convince Gamabunta to leap directly at the sand beast, to destroy the Jinchuriki, to end the demon's physical manifestation. It was a suicide move. Gamabunta would likely survive with only wounds. He could dissipate back to his own realm at will. Even wounded he'd survive and get patched up. But Jiraiya would have to arrange a perfect strike at the sand kid or else he would die. Gamabunta leapt into the air, but something happened to the target. The sleeping redhead went flying through the air and collided into a tree. His eyes popped open. Once he was awake, the demonic sand monster was disrupted. Gamabunta fell through the air, passing through where the sand beast had been. He and his summoner landed in a thick, grating pile of sand. The sand beast was no more. Someone or something had attacked the Suna kid, but who? Why? And why didn't Jiraiya think of doing something like that? Damn, he was getting slow in the head. Gamabunta began yelling at Jiraiya for being a stupid pervert with brain rot from all your whoring around. Those huge summons then vanished too. Wolf, dragon, rhino, gone. Jiraiya hadn't had the time to even think about what they were, but wow, damn. He need to question someone who'd seen the whole exchange. Several Suna shinobi went to either help or kill off the redhead, but Jiraiya saw another ninja intercept and restrain them. The tall, black-haired man knelt down and spoke to the Jinchuriki. The now fearful redhead nodded a few times and began crying. What in the hell could make a Jinchuriki cry? Jiraiya wondered. Less than a minute ago, he was trying to kill everything he set his eyes on. Who was this ninja who could say a few words and get that kind of reaction? Jiraiya needed to talk to this ninja. He jumped off Gamabunta, who was still yelling at Jiraiya, and rolled onto the ground, one of his more elegant moves. He ran toward the redhead and that other ninja. By the time he arrived, the redhead had been packed off by Suna ninja. The black-haired ninja stepped in front of Jiraiya, a mildly menacing gesture. The toad sage stopped as this ninja was his target. He could always catch up with the redhead later. He'd almost certainly be heading to hidden sand. Jiraiya could slap on some new seals and keep that blasted tanuki under control. You! Who are you? Jiraiya bellowed. He was going for intimidation. I am the one who will repair that boy's poor seals, the ninja responded. I am a seal master, young ninja. I am the great toad sage. A roll of the eyes showed exactly what the grass ninja thought of the toad sage. Jiraiya, yes, I know. I know much of your exploits, venerable ninja. Jiraiya frowned. Venerable was just a politer word for old. No old ninja could still bag a dozen different beauties a week. No venerable ninja would have the stamina. And your name? I am called Taro of the river. It didn't mean anything to the toad sage. He needed more information. You fancy yourself some kind of seal master then? Taro smiled. I do fairly well. Now please excuse me. I have students to look after. Jiraiya held up his hand. Those grass ninja. You trained them? A look of pride erupted on Taro's face as he nodded. Those 3 are quite the powerhouse, Jiraiya said. They'd be brutal on the battlefield. I will pass along the compliment, toad sage. Taro then disappeared. Wait, Jiraiya still had questions. He had never heard of this Taro person before and Jiraiya made it a point to know every seal master he came across. After all, no ninja could cause havoc quite like a seal master. Sealing demons, releasing demons, engineering exploding tags large enough to demolish a 15-foot wall. All the exploits of sealing masters. Damn. Now I need to find Sarutobi-sensei and tell him what I've seen. The toad sage bounded away. Taro looked at where Jiraiya had just stood. He waited for Jiraiya to leave before searching for his students. Jiraiya, the toad sage. Naruto remembered the profile of the man locked among the old man's secret papers. He remembered the birth certificate for one Uzumaki Naruto listing Jiraiya the toad Sannin as godfather. More anger bubbled inside Naruto. He began to regret helping to save this miserable place, save it for irresponsible assholes like this Jiraiya. A plan formed in his mind. Then Taro took off, tracking back to the micro-puppets he had on his students. They weren't injured but were too weak to fight or defend themselves. He needed to get them situated. Jiraiya left all over the village, surveying the damage, helping where he could. His main priority right now was finding his sensei. He'd helped disarm a variety of explosives from the Hokage Tower, but no Sarutobi. He'd helped to stabilize the damaged walls of the hospital, but no Sarutobi. He tended to the wounds, helped put out fires, transported some of the prisoners of the Invasiano Sarutobi. The more he looked, the greater his fear. His sensei, the Hokage, was dead or captured. What would Konoha do without its leader? Could it rebuild? Could it survive? Taro took his students to an out-of-the-way training ground and threw up tents in the deep brush. He settled his students into bedrolls and made sure they drank water and took their ninja vitamin pills. They weren't dangerous like soldier pills, but they would help to repair the damage from mild to medium chakra exhaustion. I will be leaving some traps, but sleep with one eye open, as we like to say. I will return in a few hours to see how you are. If you're strong enough, we will return tonight or tomorrow. Did the statues work? Number 3 asked. Taro smiled. You 3 saved Konoha, they'll never know. As you remember, a Jinchuriki holds the power of a demon. But that boy had been driven insane by his. In his rage he released it fully. How do you stop a bijou? Number 1 asked. I didn't need to, Taro said. I only had to stop the technique the little boy was using. He'd gone to sleep and given the demon free rein. I used a simple technique called chakra strings to yank the boy off that sand creature and slam him into a tree. The crazed demon didn't even notice. He was too busy enjoying his freedom. Number 2 mumbled, half asleep. I am glad. Did you collect the statues you loaned us? Taro shook his head. No, they are designed to be used a single time. After the demon's fury broke, the 3 creatures released the chakra you gave them and dissolved into sawdust. Number 1 had to chuckle. You are paranoid about your techniques, aren't you, Number 4? All good ninjas should be. I would not have such things used against me. With that he jumped from the tent and took off for the caverns beneath the Hokage monument. He wanted a quiet place for a conversation. When he released the seal storing the Hokage inside a chunk of broken masonry, the old man looked pale and determined. Where is Orochimaru? The Hokage shouted. He was shaking and looking around in confusion. I save your life, and you wonder where your worthless student is. I drove him off. Taro pulled a blade from the sheath on his back. After reclaiming this blade, the grass cutter, for my country, the anger in the Hokage's eyes dimmed. Thank you, then, for that service. How did my village fare? In a few minutes you can see for yourself. But I will say that I am displeased with what you did with the warning I gave you. Orochimaru entered the forest of death and wounded countless students, including the near-fatal sealing of Uchiha Sasuke. I understand one of the Akimichi of the Hidden Leaf died. Then he pops up sitting next to you in the arena at the finals. You are too old to remain Hokage. I should kill you for your insolence, young ninja. As you have just saved my life, I will tell you this is not your concern. Taro nodded and made to leave the cavern. One measure of success of a leader is always having a successor groomed and prepared to take over without interruption. Had I not saved you, who would have picked up the pieces? An angry, sad Hokage blinked at the odd advice. Again, this is not your concern. I cannot discuss village secrets with one such as you. You are correct, of course, old man. I made the Hidden Leaf not my concern many years ago. Taro vanished before the Hokage could ascertain what the grass jounin meant. Then the answer came to him. Naruto. He always called me old man. Perhaps he is becoming as strong as he claimed he would. The Hokage could not lift himself from the floor for a few minutes, as tears streamed down his face. When the Hokage left the cavern to search for Naruto, the reality of the devastation in Hidden Leaf assaulted him. The dead, the wounded, the families burned out of their homes. Ninjas angry and ready for vengeance, needing a firm hand to restrain them now until a plan was ready. Then, Jiraiya insisted the Hokage visit the hospital before doing anything else. Being 70 with a severe case of chakra exhaustion was not a pleasant thing. As he was sent into an enforced sleep, the Hokage wondered if he should send an emissary to this Taro from Grass Country. The ninja had saved the Hokage's life. Naruto might be angry, but he still cared for the village. A bittersweet realization. The grass team left in the pre-dawn hours the next day. Numbers 1, 2, and 3 were feeling much better. I have not discussed it with the Grass Council obviously, Taro said, but all 3 of you qualify as chunin in my book. Thank you, Number 4, Number 1 said. The group then fell silent as they began their journey. By sundown they'd be in Grass Country. They were moving at a far slower pace than usual given the events of the previous day. As with the last time he left Hidden Leaf, Taro left behind a few shadow clones. They had a task to perform. A few hours later, when Kunoichi and civilian women began attending the baths, the shadow clones discovered their target, Jiraiya, peeping. A few chakra strings interrupted the nerve signals from his brain. A quick storage scroll later and Jiraiya was a captive. Predictability in a ninja was a dangerous thing, as Jiraiya might someday finally learn. All but one of the shadow clones dispelled. The remaining one hinged into an injured man's face and clothing. It walked slowly, painfully, to the village gates. Mixed in among all the devastation, no one noticed how Jiraiya the Toad Sage left the Hidden Leaf village. Chapter 14. Into every victory, tendrils of defeat must creep. Naruto and his team did not make it back to grass without a nasty surprise. A massive dark-cloaked ninja erupted from the underbrush when the team was within 10 kilometers of the Grass Country border. I would speak with Taro of the river, please. The voice was gravelly and inhuman. A chill went up Naruto's spine as he rested within the body of his puppet Taro. He recognized this hulking beast. The useful traitor Kabuto had described him exactly this way. This was a battle puppet of Akasuna no Sasori, the revered, insane puppet master from Hidden Sand. The man was at least 20 years older than Naruto and had been trained by other puppeteers. It was terrifying looking at this other puppet, looking and wondering what Sasori saw when he looked at Taro. Would this master of the puppet technique recognize another puppeteer in Taro and Naruto? This was the worst possible person to meet up with on a day like this with tired Chunin to be. My name is Taro, Naruto's puppet intoned in a perfectly human voice. The revolting puppet in front of them gave Taro a careful scrutiny. You are smaller than I expected. From the wild reports I've received, I figured you for at least 15 feet tall. Is it true you eat a whole cow for breakfast in the morning? I did not ask for a reputation, Taro said. His students watched and prepared. They did not know that Sasori was stronger even than Orochimaru on a good day. Anyone who can gut my old, tricky friend Orochimaru is worthy of a reputation, Taro of the river. I wonder what would happen if you and I were to fight, Taro drew the grass cutter off his back. With his other hand, he prepared 100 of his puppet clones in case of dire straits. Naruto didn't want to reveal that he was a puppeteer in front of this S-rank monster. In truth, he wasn't even sure his self-designed puppet techniques would be able to cause any damage to another puppet master. Sasori wore a hardened shell, so Taro's micro-puppets and chakra poisons were useless. A master puppeteer could just as easily overpower Naruto's chakra strings attached to a puppet army as fall victim to it. If a fight broke out, he would have to go nuclear quickly. Naruto had devastating techniques, but he'd never fought against a skilled puppeteer before. Naruto remembered a profile he'd read of the Uchiha among the Hokage's papers. Their arrogance is astounding as they teach their children. Only an Uchiha can kill an Uchiha. Naruto was fairly terrified that the real truth was that only a puppeteer could kill another puppeteer. Today was not the day he wanted to test that hypothesis. After all, he knew from close calls in the past that experience could beat out superior techniques any day of the week. Upon seeing Taro draw the grass cutter, Sasori did not attack. He chuckled. Excellent. Excellent work, Taro. I see that my spies were not wrong. You have taken that sword from Orochimaru. Sasori's puppet gave some more gravelly chuckles. For the pleasure you've given me this day you may pass. But you interest me, so I'm sure I'll be seeing you again. The large hulk quickly took off in the direction of Wind Country. Taro and his students did not move until Sasori was no longer visible. Was that number 2 began to ask. They say his parents named him the Scorpion of the Bloody Sands at birth, Taro explained. He's only gotten worse since then. Taro's students nodded. They had studied the bingo books. We'll be running the rest of the way. Keep your senses keen. Presume that we're walking into traps and ambushes. We will not stop, if possible, until we're in the central office. Taro didn't wait for an answer. He began to run. Who knows what some crafty bugger like Sasori could do given enough time. He allowed a narrow stream of questions to populate his mind. How had Sasori heard about the battle yesterday already? Spies, but who? How had Sasori known Taro's route? Taro hadn't taken a straight-line path. He cut through certain segments of the forest. He used roads that were little better than cart trails. Had Sasori's spies marked Taro in some way for tracking purposes? This wasn't a coincidence. Damn. Naruto needed more experience before he wanted to have a target painted on his back. 3 days had passed since Taro had met Sasori on the road. He'd been stuck in meetings, debriefings, and every other kind of administrivia. He had not had a chance to return to his laboratory since returning. Naruto wanted out of Taro. He hadn't crawled out since vomiting on himself after his loss of control with the old storekeeper. He only entered or exited his puppet when he was in a safe place. Finally, Naruto couldn't stand it any longer. He put in for a 2-day leave to recuperate from his experiences. Once they realized that battling Orochimaru wasn't an abstract thing or a great story, but something Taro had actually done, and likely something Taro needed to heal or recuperate from, the other Jounin looked sheepish and granted him the time off. He made it quickly to his laboratory complex. While he ran, he thought of more questions he had for Kabuto. He needed a more thorough interrogation on Kabuto's work with Sasori. Orochimaru angered Naruto, but Sasori scared him. He needed to figure out why. A ninja had to be in control of his emotions. Plus, Naruto had hated to feel fear. Kabuto should also have some progress on a few new, targeted poisons. A puppeteer couldn't rest on his laurels, after all. He knew more of the wider world now. He knew better the kinds of things he needed in his arsenal. One new poison was supposed to be a protection against the Hyuga or the Uchiha, people with special eye-based techniques. They wouldn't be able to use their eyes if they'd been dosed with an ocular nerve poison, right? It was a fairly extreme measure, but Naruto had heard some horrifying things about Uchiha Itachi. Seeing the Hyuga in person had also reminded Naruto to be more wary of them. After all, the Byakugan could likely detect chakra strings, if the wielder knew what he or she was looking for. Taro passed through the final door protecting his lab. Naruto piled out of his damned puppet. He had been so busy during his training month that he hadn't left then. That was stupid. He had allowed himself to be preoccupied, to not take care of himself. He needed a shower. And some food that he didn't have to eat from the tube that came down Taro's mouth and throat. He had gotten tired of eating things that had already been chewed by his puppet's jaws first. The warm water felt great. He was too old to ride around in a puppet like that. It had been fun at the age of 8. Now that he was nearing 15, it was less fun. Taro's identity was almost at the end of its usefulness anyway. Sasori and Orochimaru were both interested in Taro. It was time for Taro to disappear. How? Perhaps Naruto would take over the life of an IWA peasant farmer at tea drying warehouse manager. It was good he'd made other identities so long ago, all the better to slip away. But what would he tell his students? The three of them were probably the only people Naruto had ever formed an emotional connection to, leaving aside the old man. He didn't know what he wanted to do. The answer would come in time. Taro walked down the hallway to where that worm Kabuto was stored. One needed to be wary even around someone who could no longer mold chakra. Tell me if the progress you've made is worth enough to keep me feeding you. It was a familiar ritual to Kabuto. He was little more than a laboratory rat now. He had thought long and hard about swallowing one or another of the various poisons available to Heimer, attempting to use them on his captor. He didn't have the right plan. He didn't know what the seals inscribed inside body would really do to him. He knew the threatened consequences, but it wasn't proof positive. The serum you requested is finished. It should work, but I don't have anyone to test it on. Unlike your former master, Kabuto, I do not test horrible poisons on innocents. I have a suitable test subject in mind. Taro accepted the poison and tucked it away safely. I have need of your memory again, Kabuto. We're going to talk about your former spy master, Sasori. Tell me how he met you. I've told you this before. You're going to tell me again, little ninja without chakra. I have information about this Sasori from other sources than you. I wish to know whether you're lying to me. Convince me, Kabuto. The silver-haired prisoner sighed and began. After listening to Kabuto for 6 hours, Naruto felt like he needed another shower. Kabuto was too dangerous a person to allow to live. Powerful, amoral, and cruel, a mimic of great capacity, a spy able to infiltrate a village and remain for years. He locked Kabuto away. The ninja needed to be dealt with, but he was still useful for now. Naruto took a rather special storage scroll into another part of his laboratory, far away from Kabuto. He sealed himself inside a bare stone room. He formed up chakra strings, ready to immobilize Jiraiya once he reappeared. When Jiraiya awoke, he found he couldn't move and he was in a horrible stone cellar. There was a guy in the corner that grasped Jounin. What the hell? Where am I and why can't I move? I choose not to let you move, Toad Sage. In fact, you won't move again until we've had a satisfactory conversation. I will kick your ass very soon. Taro nodded. Yes, in a straight fight you would likely win. But know this, Jiraiya, I almost never fight fairly. Why be stupid and give up my advantages? How are you doing this? I've never heard of restraining seals that leave the head free but paralyze everything else. Taro kept a blank expression. Misdirection was a prime tool of a good ninja. Jiraiya filtered everything through his knowledge of seals and flashy techniques. Wouldn't he be surprised if he discovered 2 thin strands of chakra kept him lying on the cold stone floor? Jiraiya, dead last of his academy class, member of the legendary 3, holder of the Toad contract, mentor to the 4th Hokage and the only leaf ninja to ever exceed your own accomplishments, and godfather to that same man's son. Here Jiraiya looked confused. Godfather, and you don't even remember. Fitting, I suppose? I've read many of your confidential reports to the Hokage over the years, Jiraiya. I know you asked for and received updates on the boy. His name was Uzumaki Naruto, I believe. How? How did a grass Jounin steal my coded reports? The man didn't want to believe. Naruto wouldn't be parting with any secrets this early. He wouldn't relate how he'd stolen the Hokage's private correspondence years ago. I have better spies than you do. Jiraiya had no intention of giving anything away. Fine. Let me see what I can guess from what I know of you. I'd say you would look in on the little guy once or twice a year but without ever introducing yourself. Looked rather too much like your dead student, but he was also a reminder of the fox. How did you know? Jiraiya calmed himself a bit. He was giving away too much. The grass ninja had thrown him on the defensive. He didn't need to say anything, admit anything. Why does this matter? Naruto left Hidden Leaf years ago. I haven't seen him in, 7 years? If you're with the Akatsuki and looking for his current location, I'd be the last person to ask. Taro looked amused. Akatsuki, another topic of interest to me. But let's finish our discussion on Naruto first. Why did you bother to go look at him if you didn't want to help care for him? Jiraiya sighed. Why do you want to know? My reasons are my own, Toad Sage. Answer the question or prepare to starve for the next week. My patience is gone. That broke Jiraiya. It wasn't like he was being asked about village security. He was giving his personal opinions on a kid who'd been missing for 7 years. You're right. I was a bastard. I saw how he lived and how he was treated. It was too hard to look at a tiny Minato and remember I'd never see him again. Taro's smile turned to a neutral stare. I wondered if you would say something like that. I'm not sure I believe it. We'll return to this topic in the future. Why don't we talk about Akatsuki? Let's start with a former member of theirs, Orochimaru. Jiraiya's eyes went wide. He hadn't confirmed that Orochimaru had once belonged. Whoever this grass ninja was, he was very well informed. 1 week after returning from Konoha, Taro was summoned before the Grass Ninja Council. Did they want another report? Naruto was back in his laboratory observing and controlling Taro from a distance. He hoped never to need to ride in the belly of a puppet again. The council room was unadorned and plain, as befitted an unpretentious nation like Grass. Taro took a seat at a large round table. Over the next 10 minutes, the senior jounin of Grass entered and sat down. None of them nodded or smiled at Taro. This wasn't a happy meeting then. The current head of the council, Tenuya, bit his upper lip before speaking. Grass Country's long-standing ninja philosophy is to survive. We stay out of wars. We stay out of alliances. We do our missions and try to make the best possible lives for ourselves. One of our most important techniques is to purposefully not have Kage-level ninja associated with our village. We value general strength, not individual strength. Those who hit Kage level have stability problems in our experience. We have expelled quite a few. You, Taro or whatever your name really is, are a surprise to us. You were thought strong, not too strong until this business with Orochimaru, and then Sasori. You're expelling me from Grass Country? Taro kept blinking rapidly. This was certainly a surprise. As he considered it, it was not unwelcome. Tenuya looked sheepish at such a blunt question. Yes. You were able to wound, possibly kill an S-class ninja. You were tracked down by another one. If you remained here, you would draw all the wrong kinds of attention on us. Taro surveyed the faces of the other jounin on the council. Naruto was trying to think through the implications of his expulsion. On balance, this was a positive. Taro needed to disappear. This could be the beginning move of a series of events in retiring Taro. If I accept this expulsion, I will not be listed in any Grass bingo books, correct? Of course. This is an amicable split, Tenuya said. The jounin knew it was dangerous negotiating these types of splits. If this Taro had as much power as it seemed he did, he could level much of this village and the jounin in the room wouldn't be able to do much about it. If my students were to voluntarily choose to accompany me when I left the village, would they appear in any Grass bingo books? Silent looks passed between the jounin on the council. Finally Tenuya seemed prepared to speak. We could arrange that if your genin team wished to leave with you. Good. I think they should be promoted to chunin for their performance in Konoha. Tenuya nodded. We had already approved your recommendation, Taro. Thank you. I will be gone by tomorrow at dusk. Taro made to stand and leave. Tenuya motioned for him to remain seated. There is another issue, a delicate one. With your departure, we feel it would be best for the legendary grass cutter, which he recovered, to remain here in Grass Country. Can we come to some sort of agreement on this matter? Taro had to smile. These guys had balls. First they kick him out, then they ask him to leave Grass Country's most valued ninja treasure behind. I think we can, Taro said. What do you have to offer? The council looked equal parts pleased and annoyed. They would regain the treasure, but it was likely to be expensive, very expensive. What, if Naruto leaves Konoha forever? Sasuke bashing. And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoyed this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel. And leave a like if you guys need the next part. Comment down and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.